Oops, now I broke the rubber band. Damn.
And they brought in. So you can get more nervous. Did they ask you? One did.
What's that?
Did they have any?
Oh, no. Not bothering me.
Yeah, but, I feel. But I can handle it. Summarize? I think I can read it. So I'll just recognize you during public comment. If you want to show up, you don't have to. Okay, are we on questions now?
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order of the City Council for Monday, November 14th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Dave Anderson. Here. Herb Roberg. Jen Mazias.
Here.
Mary McGrath.
Here.
Tom Nimas.
Here.
Karen Novacek.
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Next, we'll stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is the approval of minutes from City Council and Historic Preservation meetings, October 10th, 2022.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the October 10, 2022 minutes of the City Council and the Historic Preservation meeting.
All right, motion by Karen and a second by Tom. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the review of monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Second. Motion by Karen, second by Mary McGrath. Roll call vote, please.
Lori Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Karen Novacek,
Yes.
Tom Nymus,
Yes.
Mary McGrath,
Yep.
Jen Mazias,
Yes.
Dave Anderson. Yes.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is public comment, and I see we have a full house, and so I'll just remind everyone, we're gonna limit it to a 3-minute comment per person. And if you could, when you approach the microphone, if you're here in person, please state your name, make sure that the microphone is adjusted. State your name and address, please, for the record, and sign in on the sheet that's on the podium there. And then we can also take comment if anyone is online and would like to give public comment as well. So with that, I will ask if anyone is here interested to give public comment tonight to please step forward.
Jerry Trimble, 24 East 3rd Street.
Can you adjust that up?
Sure.
You have to talk right into it.
Right here.
There we go.
So my public comment is about the campground.
Okay, did you sign in already?
Oh.
Thank you.
So it's about the expansion of the campground, obviously. I understand you probably are not doing this for the sake of development. I think it's stated that you're doing it to raise income for the city, if I'm not mistaken. You guys face a continual loss or lack of funding. I saw that you just defunded the tennis courts. I think you lost some road funding recently. These things keep happening. So I know it's really hard. You got to find some money to come from somewhere. And the campgrounds are a good choice because tax money is not coming back. There's only a few ways to do it. You can't levy so much tax. Me and my family, I'm just going to say, we use that Holman Lake Road all the time. We're hiking, biking down there multiple times every month, sometimes multiple times a week in the summertime. So we use that. I do want to say that the overflow is there's tents. It kind of looks like there's a gypsy campground there. So I think it could really use the expansion there for sure. And I think putting in that bathhouse there would be great for locals who use the campground, using the beach, that using the walking trails. They got a place to go there. You don't have to go all the way to the campground. I think it'd be much better to look at if it was just organized. I like that you prioritize the tent sites towards the lake and the RV sites inland there. That's really nice. Gives a nice one-up for the tent sites, so they don't have to look through the RVs. I think it'd just be easier for campers to use instead of trying to fit spots in there. Obviously, it's already established. It's a camping spot. It's probably going to stay that way, so why not organize it, make it a little better? I like that idea. The open field expansion. I can say I'm not a huge fan of the RV van shape there. I think personally, I don't think it would look very good. That being said, I would be willing to entertain you all looking into the yurt option. I've looked at the payback plans. I think it looks legitimate. I think it might add a little charm and trade off for what we could get there. And if I'm not mistaken, there would be income pretty quickly, that you wouldn't just be paying back the loans right away. You'd actually have income coming in for each.
To be determined.
To be determined, sure.
And technically, we're not supposed to answer questions during public
Okay,
comment.
sure. And also, so I'm willing to look at it. It's impermanent. You can take it away. If it doesn't work out, you can sell the yurts off. It would be terrible, if it didn't work out, but I love as much green space as possible in the city, but I also want to see the city continue to survive and not continually lose lack of funding here and there and everywhere. So I love that you're trying creative thoughts to make that happen. It's not easy. I feel torn on it. I love all the green space. It's beautiful, but I see the other things happening too. So, and I love that you still have the trail there. We're not taking away the trail. So I think it could add something. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. I think most of you know me by now. So, the discussion continues now on the RV park. And several things are kind of looking good here. One of which is that we know that the city needs to have more revenue. That's not in question. That is really, truly something that really is there. We need to work on that together. All of us. There are ideas we haven't even discussed yet. And so we need to do that at the time we have the opportunity. So looking at a lot of things going on with the West End Park at this particular point, I think back in 2015, there was a discussion about how to expand the West End Park down there by making it up to 70 sites. Looking at that was something that I think the whole community, basically, from what I understand, pretty much approved of. I have a few issues, though, a few reservations on the 2 acres that are up as part of the, essentially what we could call the green belt or the green corridor. And what it is not so much the fact that we shouldn't use it, but just the fact that I really don't yet understand what's going to happen with Holman Lakeview Drive. Is that going to become a truck bypass? Is that going to be paved? Is it going to be unpaved after it's paved, after we get the whole Highway 13 done? It's kind of an interesting question. And the reason I'm asking it is that if we look at Memorial Park and we look at West End Park here, as far as the trees and the buffer, they're both buffered from heavy traffic. That little tiny little 2 acre spot there isn't. And if you look at it where you're going to put in 7 sites there, and then you're going to have people camping there. My wife and I live right by Highway 13. During the summer, we have our windows open, and at 4 a.m. we can hear all the traffic going by, very, very loudly. Sometimes semis, and we even have the midnight siren that goes down, from Radcliffe or where it's coming from. And so having that as a real traffic area is going to be noisy for people there, and I'm not too sure you're going to accomplish much by putting camping there. And that's kind of a point I think to look at. But there's another point that goes with it too, and that is that the buffering of essentially Memorial Park and West End Park by the trees there. Once we lose that buffering to the trail that is down there, that whole area there that we call the Jewel, that 16 acres, is buffered by all that area back up toward Holman Lakeview Drive. That's the buffer zone for the trail. And that trail, if we have too much going on and too much noise and we kind of move our way kind of down into it a little bit more, I think there will be some issues that will come up from people in town about the fact that that trail is a very important part of Washburn. It is going to continue to be a very, very important part of Washburn. And I think as we grow, yes, I know that we're looking
You're
at.
3.5, just to let you know. You're 3.5 minutes, so we need to,
Oh, so you want me to stop? Okay, so I rest my case. How's that?
thank you, I appreciate it, and I hate to do that, but I have my,
We'll talk
I
later.
have to keep us on track here with the number of people that we have.
You do want to state your name.
Yes, and John, I'm assuming you wrote your name down on the log there?
Yes, if you can read it.
Okay, and just, if you could state for the record, even though we know you, not everyone else does, so.
Oh, okay. I am John, middle initial R, stands for Richard Hopkins. And my wife and I have the two art galleries in town here, Art Historic Gallery and Artists on the Byway Gallery. And we have a lot of other ideas too beyond that. We'll talk about that later.
Thank
Scott's
you.
sitting there looking at us, oh no.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. All right, who's next?
Hi, I'm Linda Barnes, and I would sign in, but I don't see a pen.
That's at your feet.
And it fell down. Ah, it fell, okay. I live on West Third Street. So my question, because I remember when the 2015 plan was done, and yours are really cool. But I do not recall during that park planning process, any discussion, any kind of market analysis. And I realize I've read a little bit about the proposal, but what I have not seen is for $500,000, what kind of payback, what kind of justification is there for a $500,000 building of any sort there? Or are there other ways to build more revenues for the city with $500,000 investment in some other ways? So thank you very much. If you, when you are discussing, if you would explain that for us, several people had the same question.
Thank you.
Just leave it up there. Thank you.
Who's next? Don't be shy.
I'm Bill Scripps. I live at 228 West 4th Street. I handed these out to the council, and I think many people here have them. 70 heads, I think, back there, so that's great. And I'll try to fit this into 3 minutes. I know I talk fast. I think we all agree on two things. Everybody in this room is that we all love Washburn, and two, that we know the bills have to be paid. I think the future for Washburn is very bright. My 3 children love it here. They're all talking about moving here with their families. They love the people being so friendly. They love the cute shops. And last but not least, they love the Lake Trail. They frequent it. And I think hopefully we can find other revenue besides raiding the lake shore. And I respect people that like the yurts. I did at first, but the more I thought about it, I thought about wood smoke, which I think is hazardous to health. It's up there with diesel fumes in terms of particulates for the lungs. And the big fear I have is that putting anything there will set precedent for developing the other 2 lots. And so I don't really want to see that land touched. It's sacred to me and to many others. And I'm afraid doing it to one lot is going to open the door for the other lots down the road. Also afraid of people there cutting down branches and little trees to get a better view. The other thing is I can see the lot, that lot from the trail. And if I can see the green grass, I'm sure I'll be able to see whatever structures are there. So thank you. I did, just addressing this handout here, I did hand out a 4-pager. The last 2 pages are redundant. The first 2 is the meat of the matter. Begins with a quote from the park committee that they recommend the council delay plans and consider yurts and potential areas. And my other concern is the money. My wife's grandfather always said, don't put anything into the stock market that you can't afford to lose. And putting up $1 million is scary to me. So we have 3 suggestions for revenue. One is eliminate the seasonal camping rate. I think it's costing us dearly. 2 is possibly adding more RV sites to Thompson's per the 2015 report, and or yurts to both existing campgrounds. And 3 is develop other campsites, including rustic campsites that are more inexpensive to create and maintain. And then the next page, page 2, are the spreadsheets. Again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but our seasonal rate boils down to around 16, 18, 19 bucks a night. And I think we're losing money. Someone else, not me, did the top half, and she estimated an $81,000 loss doing it seasonally compared to having full occupancy. Of course, we're not going to get full occupancy. That's not realistic, but maybe 70% is realistic. In either case, we can make a lot more money by ending the seasonal rate, or at least adjusting it way up. At the bottom, we have comparable sites. That's what I did. I looked at Lamb's Resort in Tofty. I used to camp there a lot. They're usually booked up a year in advance. 57 bucks a night, 15% discount for a week, which is $339. Then the bottom right, you see the circle that comes down to $8,800 a season. Apostle Islands. The next one, 50 bucks a night. I didn't see any discount on the website. I called, no one answered.
And just to let you know, you're at 3.5
Okay,
minutes, so we do need to wrap
10
it up.
seconds. 9,100 for the season. And then Washburn, our seasonal rate is 3,000. So I think there's a lot of room there to increase revenue without touching the ground with the state. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here who would like to make public comment? Please come forward.
I have handouts for city council members if you'll pass them around. I am Susan Lentz, and I
And
live,
if you could try to speak up and into the microphone, please, thank
I
you.
am Susan Lentz, and I live at 631 West Bayfield Street. I own and direct Artists on the Square Gallery. I really appreciate having a chance to present my point of view. I'm new to Washburn. 5 years, I think, makes me a newbie. I know so many people here have been working for much longer than I have to think about ways in which the city can be improved and can flourish. It's a city that we all love, whether we're newcomers or whether we've been here for a long time. The last time I wore this green sweater, I was presenting, it was 8 years ago, and I was presenting a talk on climate change to a group in the Twin Cities. And I opened it by saying, it isn't easy being green. Well, I hope that would kind of soften up the audience, and it didn't. That we're still as glazed eyes about climate change. But I know we've all come a long way about knowing how important green space and natural corridors are. And it still isn't easy. And I understand the dilemma of needing money to keep this town flourishing. I simply wish there was a way that we could tap into the energy and intelligence and leadership here even more than we already do to find solutions to raise money. I hope it's not too late, and I hope that you're open to considering changing or delaying responses to this. I can tell from looking at the plan from 2000 and also the plan that was referred to from 2015 that there's been a lot of energy and goodwill already put into the ideal of keeping this city green and keeping it sustainable. The points that I have made on my handout really are a couple more points about the way in which keeping all 16 acres free of what we're calling development, whether it's campsites or anything else, is really important to a city that wants to see itself flourish in the future. I've given you a handout of beautiful photographs that come from somebody who visits here, but she doesn't live here. And it's an example of the way in which people coming from the outside love this place. They love it for its green space. And of course, we all know that people love the trail. Well, I just want to build a little on what Bill said, and that is that you can see this space that we're talking about developing for yurts or RVs easily from the trail. It's very hard to imagine that that trail will stay peaceful and quiet and be a place for nature to thrive and for people to be able to have some privacy and some quiet with those spaces. The other point I'd like to make is, well, about visitors coming in, because I have the opportunity to talk to strangers, visitors, when they come into the gallery, I hear over and over how much people love our lakefront. They love it, and they come here and they find other things they love about Washburn, and they know it's beginning to really thrive, but they especially touch base on loving the lakefront. So I just want to make sure that we pay attention to that, because I'm fortunate to be in the opportunity and the place to be able to listen to people's conversations about that.
And Susan, we're at 3.5 minutes. I keep doing 3.5
Okay.
now because I let the first
Well,
person go 3.5.
I will just let you, if you have time, to look at the handout I've provided. Look at the green box at the bottom, because it really says a lot about the way young people in the future are going to want to come to cities and towns because of the lifestyle they're looking for, the millennials and the Gen Zs, that have to do with people paying attention to the green spaces in their town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, anyone?
Hi, my name is Roth Edwards, and I live at 221 West 6th Street, Washburn. And for me, the fight for the highest and the best development of Washburn's lakefront for everyone involved has very much been fought right on the streets. And I think that's where the fight has needed to be, because we need to bring this information to the people and get their feedback from it as we are tonight. For the purposes of my speech tonight, however, I'm just going to read the last 2.5 minutes of it, because the last part of this speech, I believe, does what we really want to do, which is, I believe, lift this conversation and get off this narrow path that we've been on so long. And in this way, I think we can arrive at a compromise and a solution that benefits the city, not only for the next 100 days, but also for the next 100 years. Engraved on the sign is the first stanza of Longfellow's beautiful poem, Evangeline, or Good Tidings, are the following words: Washburn, born with pride, survived the loss of sawmills, the closing of the DuPont plant, and the disappearance of shipping. But Washburn is still here after 100 years, which was celebrated in 1983. Yes, we're going to have to compromise on matters regarding Washburn's overall lakefront development. Regarding the 16 acres on Holman Lakeview Drive that have long been at the center of the city's development controversy, there is a simple solution. Begin any developmental project affecting that land, Washburn's jewel, with a community-wide survey. By listening to one another and finding points of agreement, will establish real and lasting compromise. Through involving and building Washburn's community, will at last accept and continue to achieve what we really want, a town so lovely to be in that people will want to come here and enjoy it with us. But mostly that Washburn be a joyful, healthy place to live and raise children. If we do that, 100 years from now, our children and grandchildren might, on an ironclad duplicate of the Evangeline sign, with a tree bowered and brownstone surround, iterate the words we in spirit must follow today. The 1887 motto of the Washburn News: Washburn, first and last and all the time. And if today we can foresee and begin with 2123 in mind, our children might add an additional line. Simply, it will read, quote, at the time of the first awareness that our Earth is a finite ecosystem, end quote, our mothers and fathers, following the example of their own mothers and fathers, thought, first and last and all the time, the blue earth belongs not to us, but to itself. And with each decision we make, however big or small, let's think not first of ourselves, but of our children, their children, and their children's children. Through addressing our differences and truly learning from one another, we'll claim the reality as well as the words we seek. A Washburn plan, a forever lakefront plan of the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Good evening. My full name's Leanne, but I usually go by Lee. My last name is House, just like you live in. When you're raised in Milwaukee and you date these people with these Polish names. No, I'm keeping house. I live behind DuPont High School. There's an old reference. 329 West Fifth Street. And about 10 years ago, when there was the meeting at the high school about what would happen with this acreage, everyone was on this drive about the campground. And I was already at the point of saying, well, what about this other acreage? I want to talk about this other acreage. Having been raised in Milwaukee, yeah, I'm a transplant. I've only been up here about 40 years or so, so I guess I'm still a newbie. I was already looking to the idea of something to replicate something similar to Whitnall Park, which was down in Milwaukee. It was botanical gardens. And I could see something like that evolving here. And if there's $500,000 to $1 million that's being proposed to drop on these campground sites, why couldn't that be, put into something like that? It would be doable. Yeah, it would take some work. It could get incorporated into educational programs. Northern College, UW System, ag majors, if they get credits for working and volunteering and kids get involved, master gardeners, there's a lot of people that I would hope would be willing to want to look at creating something like a botanical garden. It's a creative niche. No one up in this area has anything like this other than the Rose Gardens in Duluth. And it would be a draw. It would bring people here. They would go to the businesses, spend money, spend time. It could possibly even draw business to relocate here. Probably there would be the companies that sell seeds and plants that would be willing to use this as a test ground because we have the harsher way to prove the environment that we can raise. If we can raise the plants here, you can grow them anywhere. And they might even pay us to do that. And that's just off the top of my little head. I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot more going for them that would be able to think of ideas to be able to develop something like this. The idea of a citywide referendum kind of a thing, or something might be a possibility. I want to close by hopefully a little bit of levity. I'm dating myself now and all of us by saying, if you can remember this song, when my brother came back from Vietnam, he would always play this 8-track in his car. And this gal would sing about cut down all the trees and put them in a tree museum, and then we'll tour it. We'll charge the tourists $1.50 just to see them. Don't you? Doesn't it always seem to go, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Pave paradise and put up a parking lot. And as this discussion has been running, that's what I kept thinking about. And I was hoping that maybe it would bring a little levity to the situation. If you remember that, how many remember that song? Don't it always seem to go? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who's next?
Now everyone's gonna have that stuff in your head like I had last week.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Amy Trudeau. 24 East 3rd Street. I guess I just want to say that I like the proposal. I think that Washburn needs progress forward. I think you guys have been really thoughtful about it. I think it fits the planning project that was put in motion last year. We get a lot of business from the RV park, or just the campuses in Washburn. And it brings tourists. We need more tourist spots. I think having places for them to stay that aren't Airbnbs that take up the housing in the community is awesome. I think getting them to be here and enjoy our green spaces will make them care more. And I'm excited about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's next?
Hello, I'm Jane Hine. I moved here 2 years ago. I live at 102 East 5th Street, across from the courthouse, and I love it here. People are so warm and caring and talented, and Jan Weiss always calls this Mayberry, and I agree. But even Mayberry had its conflicts, and the beauty of the show was how the conflicts were resolved. And on that note, I would like to thank you for bringing the campground expansion issue before the townspeople, because we are, after all, the people you represent. And this decision, a huge decision, affects us all. I have 2 things to put forward. I would ask of you to consider doing away with the seasonal rates at the campgrounds and raising the rates to daily rates, or close to it, and keeping the campground area where it is. I go to the artesian well at West End at least every other day. And through the summer, I have noticed campers and RVs that are left unused on their camping sites for days on end. And now I find out that maybe the seasonal rate the city charges is such a bargain that many campers buy their spot for the season and only come out maybe on the weekends. And not only is the city not charging enough, in addition, every day a camper or camping family is not using their campground site is a day those campers are not buying groceries at IGA, or buying gas at the gas station, or stopping at Coco's for a bite to eat, or visiting the art galleries in town. So the entire town loses money in various ways. This solution we are asking is considered it's fairly easy to do. There's no even a shovel in the ground, as they say. So please seriously consider it. And the other request I have of you is to think big. And I realize thinking big is not an easy thing to do when we're desperately short of funds. I know. I've been there. But that's when it is needed the most. If a little town in Minnesota can build the largest solar panel manufacturing plant in the world, as David Bradley told us last week, or if Pacific Northwest National Laboratory located in the eastern part of Washington state, which is kind of out there, can become, quote, a leading center for scientific discovery in chemistry, earth science, and technological innovation, and sustainable energy and national security with global reach, unquote, as John told us the other week. Well, we can do something similar here. Something far-sighted and something that not only helps our little town, but something that helps the world. We have great minds here. Let's put those minds to work and come up with something monumental. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak and listening to all of our voices. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to give public comment?
Hi, my name is Sarah Randa of 320 West 8th. I wasn't going to talk, but I'm going to speak quickly. I grew up in Washburn. I've been gone for about 20 years. Recently moved back, so this town is like very important to me, like all of you, everybody. And I have mixed feelings about the expansion. I can understand it's going to create a couple new jobs. You know, it's going to create, people are going to clean the yurts and everything. We're going to Airbnb it potentially, so we'll have those fees. But then, you know, there's pros and cons. Living, growing up next to Memorial Park, all the campfires, when you have a south wind, it blows. The campfire smell is really strong. So that's another thing to think about if you're gonna have yurts year round with a campfire. The other thing with the campgrounds, I'm wondering if there's a way to do where people can book the campgrounds in advance. Other campgrounds like Black River Harbor, if I want to go camping there, I can go online, see that there's some available. Some are first come, first serve, some you can reserve. So sometimes I reserve, I know I have a spot. So I know there's times when people come up Friday night, they're driving around Washburn, there's no campsites, they don't know what to do. They just go out and find a spot. So if that's an option too, that might open more opportunities for people. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Anyone online who would like to speak? And I can't see, so let me know, Tony.
Oh, someone's coming on.
Hi, my name is Joe Kochevar. I live at 209 East 4th Street. I'll say one really quick thing. I sort of feel like the discussion about this has become sort of a zero-sum game. You're either in favor of the campground expansion or you're totally against it. I guess I'm not in favor or opposed to it, but I guess I'll just lay my parameters out. The Lakeshore Trail should, pretty much be unchanged. I'd be in favor of campground expansion if it meant that, if it's going to be a bunch of RV sites in an open field without improvements in that landscaping, so that it looks more like a forested area, much in line with what the Lakeshore Land Management Plan that the Parks Commission has gone through. I'd like to see something where that campground looks more like what you see a lot of state parks, where they're more spaced out, there's vegetation between each site. I don't want it to look like an RV park, essentially. I want it to look like nature and that recreation sort of integrated into that. So that when people walk the trail, that feeling that people have that everyone loves is maintained. On the other side too, there's the financial aspect of it. If it doesn't make financial sense, if we don't think we're going to recoup the costs to do this the right way, in a way that makes that Lakeshore Trail look nice and is in line with the way that we'd like to manage that as a resource, then I think it's something that we should, set aside until, or maybe just not do at all. The other part of it too, I think I like a lot of suggestions to get away with the seasonal fees. I have noticed a lot of ads for vacant, RVs when I'm walking around there or riding my bike or whatever in the summer. There's a lot of people that just aren't there, and I think there's probably someone could crunch the numbers on that, but I think that might be a really easy thing that we can do that involves no development costs. We can try it for a season or two, see if we see an increase in revenues, and don't have to make any changes at all. Some of the things that along that Lakeshore Trail that I don't love, we spend a lot of time brush mowing, and I know that the new land management plan that the Parks Commission has gone through is trying to change a lot of that stuff, but it so far hasn't been implemented. But I think that, we can develop a campground. If you do it right, you don't cut down any trees. I mean, that's the whole reason people go camping, is to be where the trees are and with nature. If we're cutting down trees or clearing all that spot, we're doing it wrong. I'm not in favor of continuing to mow or brush mow those areas so people can drive home and drive and have an unobstructed view of the lake. I think that we should maintain that as a green space, and we can do that while increasing recreational opportunities for people that come to Washburn, and hopefully increase revenues at the same time. So I know that's sort of a hodgepodge of all mixed together things, but I think that there's a way to do this in a way that's smart, that protects the resource and encourages people to, get out there, enjoy that trail without sort of turning it into another subdivision. I also think there's an opportunity if
Sorry, just to let you know, you
Right,
are at
sorry.
3.5 minutes, Joe.
Okay, thanks, I'm done.
Thank you, appreciate it. Trying to be fair to everyone. Anyone else, either online or in person, who would like to speak?
Okay, David, wrap it up, David.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to say,
If you could, sorry, speak into the microphone, and if you wouldn't mind stating your name for the record and your address, please.
My name is David Bradley, 402 Second Avenue East. And I'm very concerned about that lakefront. I interviewed people along the lakefront trail for an entire year, or I should say from April through November. There was hardly a person that I didn't talk to that, and if I asked them about what they felt about the trail, what we should do to it, and they all or most of them said that leave it as it is. Don't change this place. This is why we're here. These were campers. Many of the people were camping at West End. There were also the residents. And it's probably 90 or even greater than that. Let's say leave the space as natural. It's a nature experience just walking this place. And they are doing this in other areas of Wisconsin right now. Milwaukee is making corridors between their parks. It's happening in Madison, and they're finding out people want these spaces. And I think that there's ways of, like we said, get rid of the seasonal campers. And we will have daily funds coming in. There's also the golf course up here is going to put in sites, these sites. That is also going to be competing with the Lakeshore. We also don't know, the younger people of our generation are looking for their interest in silent sports, interest in nature. And there's if you look into the future predictions, people, the future says we're not going to be buying our RVs as we are now, and gas prices are going to continue to rise. So that's going to, so that's my take on it now. But I just want to just thank everybody here that brought this forward. A lot of us did not know about it, and I really appreciate that people that the council opened this up to the public. And I think a great majority of our public in this town would like to maintain that space, that green space, for the future, you say it may not be generating, income now, but it brings in people who spend that income and will in the future. This is what people are looking for.
David, you're at 4 minutes. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, we'll put her out here.
I tried to give you an extra half a minute because you don't speak as quickly as Laura. Thank you very much for your comments, everyone. Anyone else here who would like to give public comment?
Hi, my name is Dawn Belisle, and I live at 714 West 5th Street, Washburn. And something that hasn't, I've listened to everybody, and they're all very good concerns, but one thing that hasn't been addressed is we're borrowing $1 million, I've been told. And if we borrow that, how are we paying it back? And yet I have yet to see any black and white statistics showing me how much money we spend versus how much money we make on the campgrounds. And it seems to me we're putting more and more money into something that we aren't going to reap the benefits of at first. And something that I would like, a concern of mine is that I take my grandkids down to the parks all the time when I have them, which is quite a bit. And West End Park is in dire need of a new playground. It has been for years. It's not safe, and yet we don't take care of that. What's the guarantee that we're going to take care of anything for Washburn? It seems like we had a friends group take care of that a long time ago. Jackie's Field is the result of another friends group. Why isn't the city following through with what they're bragging up to be so great? We are great. We need to protect what we have, but I don't think the expansion of any more campgrounds is going to be the answer. We have to figure out how we're going to pay for things first, and it's coming out of our dollars. So I guess I would like if you could take that into consideration and take into consideration what everybody has said here, and to also remember that we're the ones that you should be listening to what we have to say, because you're representing us in a vote. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Hello, my name is Michelle Reiswig. I live at 423 West Pine Street. I've lived here now 11 years, and I'm proud to be a resident of Washburn. I can't write and talk at the same time. I'll keep it short and simple. I just want to say that I'm super proud to live here. This is a very special place. I've been coming up to this area with my family since I was about 2 years old, both boating and recreating, and that's how I've ended up here in the end. And I think that, you know, I have my girls' weekend and friends come up all the time, and it's a place like no other. They come up from the Twin Cities, and what they love about it is everything that you've heard here: the green space, the quiet, the able to get away from traffic, all of those things, the slowing down of things. Having said that, I do understand that we need to generate revenue for the city, and I want to help to do that. I don't know how, but I know that we have amazing people in this community, and I hope that you will consider options such as people have discussed, looking at eliminating the seasonal rates and seeing what that can do for us before we're borrowing money and putting shovels in the ground. And the second thing is, hopefully, and I haven't been super involved, but I would like to be involved if there's an option with a lot of other creative minds as to what other things we might do here, thinking long-term, big picture, but keeping the lakefront as it is. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to give public comment? Is there anyone else here for public comment? And the last time I'll ask, is anyone else here for public comment? Tony, no one online? Okay. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your thoughts and your time coming here tonight. Next, we'll move on to the next item, which is mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. I don't have any announcements or proclamations, but tonight I do have 2 appointments that I would like to recommend. One is for Jeff Belisle to the Housing Authority, and the other is for Matt Simino to the Joint Review Board as a citizen member. I don't believe you have information on Matt in your packet. I spoke with him after the packet went out to confirm that he is indeed interested and willing to serve on that board. He currently serves on the Plan Commission and is, I just learned recently, one of our, families that have been here for generations. And I think that would make a fine member on the Joint Review Board.
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of the application from Jeff Belisle to serve on the Housing Authority Board.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion by Karen, a second by Tom to approve Jeff Belisle to the Housing Authority. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Well, I didn't hear a motion for Matt.
I would make a motion that we approve Matt Simino to serve on the Joint Review Board as a citizen member.
Motion by Karen and a second by Dave. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you to both for being willing to help our community and serve on those 2 boards. Our next item, and thank you for being patient with us, is a presentation and discussion with representatives from Scenair Solutions on proposed county housing development plans and process. This is in tab 1 of your packet. Some information at least is. And I'm not sure if you have a presentation for the screen or if you'll just be speaking with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you again for your patience.
Oh, of course.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jarrell Harris, and I'm a real estate development manager with Scenair Solutions.
Hello, and my name is Nicole Solheim. I serve as Vice President with Scenair Solutions.
First off, I'd like to thank you all for having us out this evening, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. When we were looking at responding to the RFP that Bayfield put out, one of the things that was very important to us was how connected is this community? How concerned is this community about housing as an issue? We do affordable housing in a lot of different places, and it is a game changer when you have a community that cares as much as this community obviously cares about what is happening. So that is extremely important to us. So I just commend you all for creating that environment and you all for coming out and showing up because that is what matters, right? And this is how we get better by coming together, hashing out whatever issues we have and figuring out the best path forward. So I just appreciate seeing that tonight. I think it was perfect timing for us to be here to really see this community come together and work through an issue. So I appreciate that. We're here because we responded to the RFP that Bayfield County put out to redevelop 9.5 acres that it owns here in the city of Washburn. We were selected by the committee, and so we're very excited. Our proposal is to build 56 units of affordable housing. We are Scenair Solutions. We are actually headquartered in Lansing, Michigan, but we do have offices here. We have an office in Madison, and we have an office in Milwaukee. I am based in our Detroit office in Michigan, but I'm also working in the UP in Ironwood, like not far away. So it just kind of made sense for me to tag team and provide some support to this development. We have extensive experience in affordable housing. We've been awarded WIDA tax credits, Michigan tax credits, so we are very well versed in how to apply and how to be successful in receiving those awards. And so we believe we'll be very successful with this proposal as well. We're looking to do, right now, maybe about 56 units. We're still figuring out the site layout. Our initial proposal left that berm in place that's on the site. We heard loud and clear, the berm can go away. So we are reconfiguring the site a little bit to maybe remove that berm and get a few more units there. We know that affordable housing is an issue everywhere, right? We heard that loud and clear. So we're looking to provide housing for seniors and housing for families and folks who are just really struggling to find a safe, decent place to call home. And that is what we do every day. We build housing for folks who need it, who are getting priced out of different neighborhoods and different communities. So we want to make sure that we're providing housing for all. We will be applying to WIDA for tax credits. Their deadline is at the end of January. So we're kind of on a mad dash to pull a bunch of documents together. A whole bunch of things have to happen between now and then. But this is what we do. So we're very excited to be here tonight. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them. I know we submitted some information recently that you all may not have had a chance to really dive into, but we're here to answer any questions. Just wanted to come and say hello, so you know who we are. You'll be seeing a lot of us, so if you get tired of us, we've been warned. So yeah, well, thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you so much. Did you have anything to add, Nicole?
I was just gonna add, Scenario Solutions is a nonprofit development partner, and our MO is really to partner with communities and on-the-ground community organizations. So we have that experience in tax credits and development, everything that Jarrell mentioned, but we're here, on a fact-finding mission to learn from you guys. So I appreciate we're having a lot of meetings over here. Like he said, we will be back here, and we're really hopeful to learn more from you guys about your needs in the community and how we can put together the best development possible.
Awesome, thank you so much. I know that I've gotten approached by people who are in search of senior housing. There's a group apparently that gets together to talk about this, an unofficial group of women. And, the desire is to downsize a little bit and move into something that's a little bit more affordable. And that would in turn, hopefully free up housing for other folks who are looking for housing here in town, and there aren't any options available at the moment. We have, I think, turned away people. I'm sure you've heard the stories. People haven't been able to move here because there isn't housing available for them, even though they've been offered a job in the area. So thank you for your efforts and your application. I'm really excited about the possibilities here. Can you just confirm or deny? I'm trying to figure out, it looks like it's single family homes primarily, and then some townhomes. If you could just go into a little bit of detail for the folks here who haven't maybe seen the information that's been in the packet.
Oh, absolutely. So we're still working through the final design, but right now we're looking at cottage style houses. So a lot of single story, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, the 3 bedrooms may be townhouses. To accommodate families a little bit larger of a unit. They'll be maybe clustered together on the site, so pods of 3, 4, maybe 6 units. Garages, we recognize that is extremely important with the weather. We'll be designing a walking path around the site. It's a beautiful 9-acre site, right? So we're really trying to respect the outdoor space, the amenity space, but also as we think about people who are downsizing, what is really important to you, right? What amenities make sense for you? What type of living style? Because it's seniors, the majority of the units are single story, no stairs, right? Being able to just have one visible unit. But for the family housing, we will probably do some townhouses.
Very good, thank you. Karen.
Question I would have, assuming successful application to WIDA and the project is complete, what are your plans for ongoing project management, both collection of rents and upkeep and maintenance?
So we are planning to partner with a local property management firm. We will be doing a selection process to figure out who's the best agent and entity to manage the property for us. We believe that asset management, property management is extremely important because once we put a lot of money and effort into building buildings, right? You want them to last a very long time. And so we take property management very, very seriously. So we'll be working to figure out who's going to be that management agent, and we continue to work side by side with them for as long as we have the buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen and then Mary.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I've looked over the information. I think, it's super exciting that you're taking into account. I mean, I really like the fact that, one of your objectives is, wellness and health. And, as you can see here tonight, we have a lot of people that are very interested in, that type of stuff. So the biking trails, the pedestrian trails, the native plantings, I think, we've struggled with, right? We've struggled with putting something like this too kind of down in a lakeshore area because we want it to fit in with our community. But yet we don't have a lot of zoning codes that makes things fit in with what our community looks like. So it's very difficult. And I feel like a lot of the, whatever that theme is. I mean, we have great zoning codes, sorry. We have great zoning codes. We just don't have like architectural review boards and a very like visual concept. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to say that, because we do have zoning codes. We don't have visual themes and zoning, like architectural stuff. But anyway, so I just encourage you to keep really keeping that in mind and what you learned tonight about our community. Stormwater runoff. This is up the hill from our lake shore. The more we're going to develop, the more we're going to put things in, the more we're going to, I watch the stormwater in this community. I watch it go down the streets. I watch, and, really planning for that kind of stuff. Also, opportunities for outdoor gardening is really important. That community space, you have a couple outdoor gathering areas. And so I just hope that, and I know you're working obviously with the county, but we have so many people in this community. We have a lot of resources in native planting and how to put that stuff together so that it can really be a showpiece and can be something that everyone can love in our community. So thanks again for all of your work. And so far, I'm really, really happy. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I'm jumping the gun on this one, but I had already gotten a call from someone saying, is there a waiting list?
Yeah.
It would be, instead of the city hall being inundated in housing and even the chamber, if you, just a broad stroke of what the timing may look like.
Yeah, so like Terrell mentioned, our application to WIDA will be at the end of January. That's the primary funding source of this development. And if we get awarded, that would be announced in May, and that kind of kickstarts the rest of the process in securing the remaining funding sources. Usually you would close and start construction about a year after that. So we would say spring of 2024 would be a construction start, and probably a completion then of summer, fall 2025. It's a long process. That's why I said you'll see a lot of us, right? It's long.
There's a good timeline that you do have on number 10 in the very last page of the package. So if anyone wants to see that.
And then Carl, did you have something?
Yeah.
If you could grab your microphone too. Sure. Thank you.
Just for the record, I lived in a townhome for 18 years. I was the director of maintenance for 4 and the president for 8, and I'm not trying to apply for a job. But some observations. The senior residential housing in this city, we have approximately 70 units. And that constitutes 53% of our medical runs with the ambulance service. So if I extrapolate that out to the units, we could potentially see a 25% increase in the number of medical calls that the ambulance service runs. So yeah, take a look at the infrastructure that's required to support it. Is the representation in the handout, is that approximately what it would be? I'm just curious.
Are you referring to like the street grid, the layout?
You mean the dimensioning plan?
So this is a conceptual design. We actually have been working with the architects to figure out a better layout, and it addresses your actual question, right? So we looked at simplifying the street grid so it's more of a circular in and out. So we're working through those design pieces now.
Add some more observation. In our current units, the hallways are too small, the doorways are too small, the bathrooms are too small for senior citizens. So, and then on top of that, senior citizens come with life treasures. There's no place to put them. So you have to take that into account. I took a look at the
the design that you have, and it's 1.2 parking spots for one senior, or one unit. That seems to be an awful small number, especially on the family side, because they all come with 2 vehicles and bicycles and everything else. So there's very limited space in that design that was presented. So take a look at that, because I can tell you that it's probably not going to work out very well. I noticed in that design there was no personal space, outside space apparent from the design. I think that they need to have personal space, deck, patio, whatever it is. I think everybody would enjoy that. At the very least, they want a place for a lawn chair and a grill around here. So, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. You just kind of take those things into consideration. I fully support this. I'm not sure this is going to be the solution to our need for housing totally, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Kind of to your point, Carl, have we talked about this before? Carl is on the ambulance and has been a volunteer for a very long time and does so many, like the other folks that are here. Going into a home, and you said the hallways are too small, the doorways are too small, the bathroom, is the ability to design around a gurney going in, and people with backpacks that are usually, gurney's the right word, right?
Well, it's even the walkers and the wheelchairs that eventually you end up having to deal with, as well as the stretcher when we have to get in there.
Stretcher, thank you.
But, you know, I look mostly at the ability of the person to get around when they have reduced mobility.
It would be great to have your feedback during the design process. So WIDA does have certain requirements for universal design and a certain percentage of units, but generally when I work on a senior project, we then incorporate that into all of the units, because you might as well from upfront. And I'm sure there's additional design things like you just mentioned that have my head spinning that we could incorporate as well. And if you design for it from the beginning, it's easy to implement.
Yes, everyone can appreciate some extra space. Anyone who can have an accident and end up on one of those little, wheelchairs or something.
Yeah, I'd be happy to put in that.
Anyone else have any questions or comments
I don't have
for
a
our
question,
guests?
I just have a comment. I'm glad this is gonna get done. We have working homeless that in the summertime is living in the park. And, they're working for it.
Yes, it's needed, for sure. Thank you again. This is very exciting. Appreciate your time and your efforts, and look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks. All right. And our next item is discussion and action on Thompson's Weston Park camping expansion and park committee recommendation on the topic. And this is tab 2 of your packet. I would like to start out by thanking everyone who's here tonight. It's obviously, this is a topic that's near and dear to a lot of people. And I want to, I do want to go back to remind everyone that it was, as we can see in the 2015 plan, this is the final report that was approved, the campground plan, that during our discussions, it has been pointed out that we already have a plan. And we did start veering off of the plan, I think, when we first recently started talking about trying to do something instead of just letting this plan sit on the shelf. And we were talking about ideas based on the plan, but that were maybe different than the plan. So during the recent meetings and public comment, we've gathered some basic thoughts, I think, that are across the board, and that is, I'm hearing loud and clear that people don't really want to see RVs, especially in that open green space. And I would like to draw your attention to the letter from the former mayor here at the beginning of this final plan. It was the spring of 2012 when this process started. It's 10 years later, and this plan talks about the fact that we need more revenue. And this is literally the only way that we can get more revenue other than, you know, upping fees that we currently have. So this is not a new concept. This is not a concept that has not been thoroughly hashed through. There was a lot of public comment and planning that went into this plan. So I think it is important to come back to this plan and really look at what it said. And so I would like to just point out a few things in the plan before we go into our discussion. One of the things is on page 5. And on page 5, it talks about the project goals. And one of those goals is a park with enhanced camping opportunities, a park that is integrated with existing trails, and a park that is financially viable for the community. Dawn brought up the playground at West End. Yes, we know that that playground needs help. We have tried fixing the little things that we can, that are immediate needs. But thankfully, recently, someone has stepped forward, and we might have another group that's going to help raise money to help us get to that more quickly than we would be able to otherwise. So stay tuned for more on that. Hold on real quick, I have to grab my notes and my page numbers here. Next, page 12 of the report talks about camping. And it says several types of camping are desired at the park. Public input indicated that additional opportunities for rustic or tent camping would be more effective at meeting the goals and character of the community. And it goes on to talk about glamping, which can be, tent structures or yurts or something like that. And then next on page 22 of the campground plan. And this is on the website, if anyone wants to go back and refer to it. It's under, I think it's under more, and then planning, community planning, and then scroll down to get to the campground plan. It talks about the space, and there were lots of public comments about the space that we have currently on the RV side, and how there's quite a bit of space around each of those sites. And people are very glad to have that amount of space. They have boats or ATVs or, other equipment that they have with them, and they really value that space. And so I think that's one of the considerations when we're talking about, where things should go. So that's mentioned in here. Rustic camping, again, simple tent camping sites are still very popular. And then it talks about glamping. Glamping sites offer a superb opportunity for setting Washburn apart from other destinations in northern Wisconsin. It's not altogether true anymore because a lot of people have already started putting up yurts and glamping sites. But glamping sites could be constructed in a variety of ways. Yurts would be well suited for winter camping, providing year-round interest and use of the park. And then recently, there was some information in the plan about cost and sorry, before I get to that, I forgot. There's on page 39, project phasing. It's the implementation plan for the plan. And under priorities, under first priority are 30 new campsites for what the area can accommodate comfortably and aesthetically, new bathroom shower facilities, and children's playground. Those 3 things are in first priority. And then under the project phasing, there's near term, midterm, and future. So in the near term are to pursue grant funding for ecological and habit restoration, which is being done along the trail at least, glamping sites and rustic sites, and the children's play area. So again, we have glamping and the children's play area along with taking care of the ecological restoration. So more recently, as this topic has come back, we've pulled in some numbers and we're looking at various ways to pay for potentially these different projects. And I just want to say that the $1 million figure is out there as I think that was for the RV sites in particular where that figure came in. And the yurts would not cost $1 million. And I think would fit in more aesthetically if we were to utilize that green space area. Obviously, that's one of the things we're going to debate here tonight, is are we ready to act? What do we want to do if we are ready to act? And I also want to mention that the money that would be invested in the project, we don't know exactly yet how much would have to be spent from our parks designated fund, borrowed for, or will be received in grant funds. That we wouldn't know until we determine what project we want to do and apply for grant funds for the project. So we just have to know that going in, whatever the cost would be is a cost to be determined how that will be paid for. And so this is not the last time this issue will be before council, because I think those decisions will have to get made more specifically when those things are known. So I guess that's all I'll say for right now. If anyone has anything to get us started with, Jen?
Yeah, as the parks chair, I think folks know that I was the one who made the motion, and I just want to thank the council back in July who let it come back to the Parks Committee to get public input, right? So our Parks Committee, I just want to thank them for everything that they did. I mean, we hosted 2 public sessions, article in the paper, sat down at IGA one day, and, we heard the community and, did a nice survey. And so I agree with the mayor that, there was 2 things out of that I heard loud and clear was, follow the park plan, and then also, just being really careful on our development, what I'm going to call like the open field area, which is kind of in the lake, which is in the walking trail proper. More definitely, I think, I heard during the sensing that folks were a little bit more open to the more formal camping where it's being done now in the overflow site. So, so the 2 sites overflow. And the goal, originally this was a revenue. And I think that it is a little short-sighted to just look at revenue as a goal. I felt like the park plan really looked at, revenue, but also like how we can enhance the area for tourists and our community. So I just want us to keep that kind of in mind. Like, I just don't think, I don't think we should talk strictly about revenue. I think we can balance it. And so, I'd like to start with a motion, to get us talking that we move forward on the development of the overflow parking area, with camping and, a bathroom facility that I think is very much needed. And that we push any other development, in the walking trail area proper that I'm calling, to go back to the Parks Committee for, just, more sensing with the public, utilizing professionals to come up with some different plans. Because I think council can sit here all night to talk about 2 yurts, 4 yurts, group camping, tent sites. And I think that there are such opportunities with our community to come up with some really interesting rustic, low impact camping. And I just think it's gonna take more time with our community to do that. So I'd like to push that back to the Parks Committee to lead that feat over the winter. I think that we have the folks on that committee that have that professional background. We have Bayfield County that we can go to for help for some designs. Because I don't think the council has the expertise to come up with like rustic camping and yurt design. I mean, we can say 4 yurts, or we can say, 3 yurts over here with group camping and some couple single sites. I think natural plantings. I think there's all sorts of really cool things we can do to enhance the recreation opportunity there, and also keep, the beauty of that area.
I would second that motion, Mayor.
It's a very long motion, but.
So the motion was for development of some sort of camping on the overflow area and a restroom.
Yeah, the proposal that's on the table, our RFP proposal, that's on the table, and then pushing the other development in the future to more community input with the Parks Committee. Okay. Scott, you want me to do anything else with my motion? And this is just to get the discussion going, but go ahead.
I'd like clarification of your motion, particularly with the development of the overflow area. What exactly, specifically, do you mean as far as development or camping of that area? Are you requesting us to proceed with RV sites? Are you requesting that we look at yurts? What specifically are you asking us to look at?
At this point, it's implementation of the current proposal on the table with the RVs in the back and the tent camping in the front and the bathroom. It's the current plan.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Second then?
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. Karen, go ahead.
Can I have a question about more information from public? I mean, we've had a wonderful input tonight from the public, and we've had the survey with 51 residents responding. Are you suggesting what specifically for more input?
So, like I said, with the, I'm asking for more input in terms of on the other part, like the open field part.
No, I understand,
Oh,
but what specifically are you thinking about?
So specifically, I guess, I have high hopes. I have high hopes with our Parks Committee of forming, like, we've been talking about what our mission is gonna be over the winter. Having a community, getting some community members involved, having a subcommittee, and really sitting down and kind of hashing out different designs of rustic camping. And then perhaps even going to the point of like really, I'm frankly, and I think you guys have heard me say this, I'm frankly tired of getting different proposals along the lakeshore, bike parks, bike pump stations, the dog park. And I think they're all great ideas, but I just keep saying, I don't know what our community wants in that. We keep talking about 16 acres. So I'm talking about the 16 acres. And I think, I feel like the Parks Committee can start to do some sensing. They can come up with some different maybe rustic camping opportunities in those acres so that people can feel confident, like this isn't just like 1 foot in the door and it's going to start the development along that whole area. Because I've had people ask, well, is the walking trail protected? I'm assuming the walking trail is protected. It is protected. Yes. But the upper areas in which you overlook the walking trail, we don't have, I would say, a future, what I call a desired future condition for those areas.
Okay. So again, just to summarize, you're saying that the Parks Committee would gather more information regarding
some proposals for
that 16 acre.
For the upper portion of the areas, in
Right.
particular the open field area, and some different rustic camping. or glamping or group campsites.
And maybe talking with county to see what their experience has been with their yurts and the costs and ongoing costs, et cetera.
Yeah, I think it's a huge undertaking. I think that there is some things in the West End Park plan that can start to lead us to some different areas, and we might not get through like all the desired, but I think eventually, you know, it's one thing that we dropped when we did the 3-year, and Tony, help me out here. When we did the walking trail plan for 3 years, we really were just doing kind of that area along the walking trail, but we also did look at the open field areas, which is why they're being mowed. They're being mowed for invasive species because it's a whole plan of how to like treat those invasive species. We have to mow them for a couple of years. But again, we never had a desired future condition. And we talked in our committee about how eventually, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there, right? And so like, if we want to revegetate and plant some trees, well, then we should probably start to think about that in our desired future condition. But if we don't have one for those areas, then we're never going to know what to do there. We're going to just keep mowing and keep looking at it and keep getting proposals, great proposals. Like, I don't know, dog park, great proposal, pumpkin station. I mean, I think they're all great community things because I like to think about what's good for our community and balancing about what's good for people who live here and our children, and also making it hopefully are a little bit of a revenue maker, and hopefully for, you know, getting people to come here and enjoy our lakeshore and appreciate it more. And I think we have to start figuring it out, because if not, we're gonna keep getting proposals. Eventually, one of them is gonna come to council and people are gonna be like, yeah, let's do it, you know? And I just feel we need a plan. I'm gonna hang my hat on the planning aspect of it.
For the open field portion and other potential
The 16
areas.
acres.
The
Yeah.
16 acres, okay.
I think we
Because
got
I
to
think
do something.
what you're talking about is beyond the 16, could be considered beyond the 16.
Isn't it the 16 acres, just to clarify, the lakeshore portion of what the city owns, basically?
Yeah, and you know, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I mean, we also have acre, like we've been talking about in the Parks Committee, like what are we gonna do this? And one of the things that we're gonna talk about tomorrow night is what are we gonna take on? Are we gonna take on updating that 3-year plan? Are we gonna take on the park plan for Memorial Park? Because I bet you somebody's gonna come up to somebody saying Memorial Park, oh, let's do this here.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I
So
just
we-
wanted
Like
clarification.
trying to bite off something, right? And so I think the Parks Committee has on their agenda tomorrow night, like what our like winter mission is gonna be. And I feel like we have the energy, the expertise, and we have a community right now coming that maybe we can start to try to plan out what we want in the future there.
And obviously, if this motion would pass, I mean, I think that that's a fairly clear direction to the Parks Committee in terms of what we would want the Parks Committee to focus on.
Yeah, and I hope that we just showed the council what we can do for public input and what we just did the past 2 months with getting sensing for what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, two issues. One, the plan for the open area is only 50% of the total area that we're talking about. That, you know, the trail is still gonna occupy 50% of that, and there's an awful lot of space there to have green belt to support it. The second point that I would make is that the type of restroom we put in and where it's located has a lot to do with what we might do, because the plan here that says put in yurts is we're gonna be using, those yurts are gonna be occupied 300 days a year. 300 days a year means that we put in a different type of restroom than the rest of the parks. So
That's a great point. And I'm sorry that I did not even address that, because it was a discussion point of it being a year-round restroom, which we probably want for, if we do future expansion in the winter, and for like ice fishermen and for different things there. You're right, that is.
So that's a huge step from, for instance, the Huff Cut restroom that we put in down at the marina. Having a year-round restroom with showers and everything else that has to come along with it, that's a big step. So if you're gonna put in, and I fully agree, we should move forward with a overflow area to the best we can. And we need to put a restroom in there, not only for the camping area, but also for the boat ramp area and
And the playground,
And the
and the
playground.
walking trail, and the
There's-
exercise
there's
area.
Nothing down there. I know when I lived out on the island, it was a big issue about putting porta potties next to the lake. That was not a big, popular thing, and I believe the DNR had some regulation against it. So, we need to take a look at that. And take all that into consideration, because the decision is gonna have to be made with this decision that you did for the motion.
Tom?
Yes, we should do this overflow with a bathroom that is year round. Now, I had said, and I looked, and the net revenue right now of a 4 yurts would make a good idea to do that, but if we put yurts over there, how about, and I believe I'm correct, tamaracks used to be a native species around here. Plant those trees.
You're talking about in the overflow area,
No.
in the open field area?
In the open field area, put some tamaracks, because in fall time, they're real pretty.
And I think that is why my motion included like more investigation, because I have talked to countless people about this discussion, and I think, I keep saying, boy, if I can't come to a reasonable, like, balance with people that I feel like I'm aligned with, we need to have more conversation. I think tamaracks is great. I think hazelnuts is great. I think Laura and I on the phone the other day talked about group campsites. I think a group campsite in our community, people would love it. I think tent sites are great. So I think that's why if we put it to the Parks Committee, we come up with different designs with like some pretty like interesting native plants. We can also like maybe appeal to folks that want to really keep that character of that green space. And also enhance the recreation piece of it with rustic camping. So yeah, I love tamaracks. There's
a couple of them coming into town.
There's
a couple
And out to the
coming into
visitor
town.
center there.
There's a lot of good
They are
native plants.
real pretty.
And I will say, one thing I've heard loud and clear, too, I would say several phone calls on this, and one several times people come up to me, is sometimes we don't follow through, sometimes with our plantings. Like, for example, in our business park, people are pretty disappointed. We said that we were gonna do some plantings there, and even when the county building came in, like that it wasn't gonna be this, and we just never, we don't have great, we don't follow through great on plantings and these buffers, right? And so I think it's something that we can do better at. And I don't think it's easy. I think we often say, like, and I even was looking at this site plan with the county development, you know, it has like windrows and all this stuff. You know, I know enough in natural resources that sometimes that stuff is pretty difficult to get established. Takes somebody to, you know, baby it. It's not easy. I also look down at the walking trail, and has anybody seen how beautiful our native plant garden is there? Talk about, so I think the people in this community are ready to really put their foot forward and do something that's really interesting. So
I know we had talked before about Memorial Park and putting tent sites over there. That would be a great idea, but we should develop as much of this as we can, so that if we go to do the main part of the park, we don't have to shut the whole thing down. We can shut a part of it down, and we're not losing any revenue in the meantime.
So we are focusing on West End
Right.
here for this discussion, and that is the motion. My question is it worth developing the overflow camping? Because we're already getting revenue from the overflow camping. And how much more revenue are we gonna get if we develop that and, you know, organize it like we've talked about, versus just putting in a bathroom and potentially, I mean, and I know this isn't the motion, but if you did put in just a few yurts, even off to the sides of that open area, you're not blocking the view really of anything. They would really be easy to kind of tuck in there. And it's less of an
are
investment.
you talking the overflow area?
I'm talking about, I'm comparing the
Okay.
overflow with the open space area. So I'm talking about the open field
All
area.
right, well, you're gonna say open field,
Open,
overflow.
open field with the yurt potential.
Yeah.
I think, I've seen that it seems like it would be more of a return on investment, to to actually get some revenues coming out of it beyond what we're doing now. Because the amount of money it's gonna take to put in, depending on what kind of development we're talking about for RV sites, if we're doing like full service sites, which I think is what the proposal was, it's pretty substantial investment to put water and sewer and electricity in there.
No, I hear you. I think if you look at the numbers, the most substantial investment is the bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean, big time.
And that's also the biggest potential for grant money, hopefully, too, is to get
Hopefully
half of
so.
that paid for. That would be amazing.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, in my head, I probably could have brought them. I've sketched out a million different designs, right? And I feel like I'm qualified, right? I do this for a living. I've worked in campgrounds. But I also feel like I'm not qualified. Like, I feel like getting more public input into those open spaces for that design to bring the community along is really important. And I hate to just stick a couple of yurts in and then us go like, oh, I wish if we were doing that, we did this parking area over here and we buffered it, and we did this, I just feel like we're short. I just feel like we can plan it out better. And in terms of, we're already making money on that site, I agree, but I think the numbers show that if you actually planned out that site and up the cost, because right now we're charging 25?
20 or 25.
20 or 25, and if we put water and sewer there, we could probably do 60, that would organize it, and it would, and would have more sites there, and then we'd have the restroom, and then we could, I guess, just better plan for the other area in the future. And that's just, I mean, like I said, I am willing, amend away. That was for me to get discussions. I have changed this motion 100 times in my head.
Sure. Laura?
I have so many notes, and I have to just start by saying how grateful I am for the amount of response and feedback I've gotten more than any other time in the last 4 years. And across the board with opinions, whether it's entirely to keep it wild or go with the plan, because there were people that spent hours and hours every week for years coming up with, the perfect plan, and just for dedication to that. I do not feel that it's ever wise to hold hard and fast to things where you're stuck with, we're doing it just because that's what the plan said. Because there are ideas, things change, but there are ideas there that are worth revisiting. So I'm glad we're talking about that again. I'm also glad we are talking about having more time to really consider options, because I have a million sketches too, and I know other people that do. And there are ideas that for how to find a plan that will be cooperative, that will be beneficial for all involved. And it might be the layout, it might be, one thought that came up, and I've asked 2 builders about, what do you think of yours? A tiny cabin, something just equally trailerable, removable. It's something that it's low commitment. And then we talked about the placement, if we can take this to the Parks Committee, which is why I would vote yes to this plan, or this motion, because we should be able to talk about the layout and the space and this buffer zone and keeping it as wide as possible, because that is far and away the greatest opinion is about protecting this green space. And it's hard not to feel strongly in a desire to want to protect that, while at the same time knowing that we are in a situation, and have been for many years before I was even aware of it, a situation of crisis in with our finances. And so having any citizen speaking up for supporting some way of bringing in more revenue is really helpful to see that when you're really poor, you want to hang on to the jewels that mean something, that have been passed down for generations. You want to pass them on to your family, right? So this, as a metaphor, for some people, calling it the jewel can have a negative connotation, because it has been used as, it makes a lot of sense, but it also becomes this
excuse to say, oh, let's find another way of revenue. So this is also, as a side note, a wonderful opportunity to come forward with those ideas for other forms of revenue. Come forward with your ideas. I wish I had notes of half of the people I talked to, but so many happened in the last 24 hours. I haven't been able to respond to all of the emails or calls. So anybody listening that thinks I didn't call them back, I do want to, and I still will. But thank you. I know, so one person that was very determined to have an opinion shared, because he's had a lot of experience with the campgrounds, is a neighbor, and also in my district is Don Sweetberg. And he collected fees for the campgrounds for a long time. And he wanted to point out that the property down there has been owned by the city for the past 50 years. He believes strongly it's time for the city to develop that valuable land and hopefully begin to generate some revenue. So again, it's another opinion about what could or should be done with this site. But his point was, if you're going to put sites of any kind in there to make money, and you're going to put in the infrastructure, which I can't agree more, the cost of putting in the infrastructure that would require water hookups and sewer hookups is such a huge cost investment I don't believe is necessary to still make revenue. And it doesn't have to be so disruptive to the property. He thinks you might as well do 30 sites or more because it would bring it. So I need to see actual numbers. So please send me messages when you crunch the numbers for what you believe is the right way to go. Because I would love to come to the next Parks meeting that this can be on the agenda and share all your opinions. But for now, I feel like because the scare of losing that entire field has made it a lot easier for everyone to wrap their minds around the idea of putting in more RV sites on this beautiful grassy knoll that I don't think would have seen so much support if that was the only thing on the table. So we can take that same metaphor with the jewels and say, if we want to protect this and be able to hand it down to our children and not have to pawn it off when somewhere down the road in the next 10 years, you get the right or wrong balance of people in here that just say, okay, it's time to just do something so that we don't just have to tell the city, I don't know what you do when you can't afford anything anymore. Go unincorporated.
You go bankrupt.
Cutting services.
Cities go,
It's not good for lots of people losing jobs. So in order to not see that happen, it's really important to consider ways to bring more attention, awareness, and appreciation in an even broader spectrum of our population, the visitors and the residents alike. And it's an amazing opportunity to use a fraction of the property to, as close to the road as possible, in my opinion, to educate on the value of our lake, our watershed, the diversity in the nature. It was brought to my attention that this field that I just saw as just sitting there as nothing, and I'm sure a lot of people do, which is how it will, if things get too dire, could easily be sold off at the wrong moment. So we want to keep that from having to happen by finding another way to bring attention. So whether that's signage or gardens or small units for special high-priced rentals, I think we can come up with a good solution with a little more input from all of us and not just a select few. So I hope to have all of council here whenever there are meetings for meetings with engineers or anything in the future before any more money gets spent. And I'm hoping to tap any expertise that anyone can offer, whether it's in designing for buildings or their preservation of the lakeshore and erosion control. I hope that you can contribute and share all your wisdom, write up sketches, make some lists. What is it that makes this so priceless to you? So we can share that with the world.
And I also don't want to disregard all the input that went into this plan that we had in front of us. A lot of time and effort went into that plan, and I think if we veer too far from it, people are gonna feel like that was a waste of time.
And I think that would be the starting point. I mean, I think right now there's a plan for a rustic campsite on that open field, but it's a pretty simple plan where it has like a circle and ding, ding, ding. You know, like we can come up with something that might be more appealing to show people actually what might be there. And I think that is something you could go out for a request for proposal on and spend money, or it's something that I think the Parks Committee can come up with 3 or 4 different designs and bring back to council.
So are you thinking, just to that line, and the floor is not open right now, but if someone wants to open the floor, they may make a motion to do so, so I cannot call on you right now.
Just want to make it.
So, no, you can't. The floor is not open right now, is what I'm saying. You may not make a comment right now. The procedure that I'm following is that we cannot get public input right now unless someone cares to open the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Would someone like to make that
Could we hear the
motion?
question first before we consider?
Yes, yes, I would love to finish, if I can remember where I was. I can't remember where I was.
Not to let go of what's come before in the plan.
Correct.
That's what you started.
And that's just, that's it. That's the main point of what I'm getting at. Dave?
I would just like to, as usual, I'm probably gonna say some things that aren't gonna be very fun. We have to realize what we are talking about. And this, I have watched this from the time I was able to understand stress, right? This has been an ongoing issue. I mean, it probably almost killed my grandfather. It didn't, thankfully. But we have to understand what we're talking about. And we are literally talking about an overgrown industrial zone. We're not talking about a pristine area of Bayfield County, such as Bark Point or Blueberry Lane with the beach. This is a railroad track that's been overgrown, that used to deliver logs and grain and whatever to and from. And I would like to see a bulldozer from one end to the other, right? And wipe it clean and start new. And that's the unpopular part about this, right? I mean,
You're gonna be super unpopular.
yeah.
Keep talking.
And let's take another thing into consideration here. The marina was put in the 80s. That was not there. We developed that. We developed the marina. That used to be an overgrown industrial zone. And so, one of the comments or a pamphlet we received from someone in the audience here stated that she came here for 12 years and enjoyed boating. Well, she wouldn't have done that if the marina hadn't been developed. So,
Do you want me to
I would love to see as many yurts as we can possibly pack in to that 16-acre zone. Whatever. Because here's the thing. I think that would be the first step in the city recognizing that tourism is the only thing keeping this town afloat. Okay? Tourism, that grocery store wouldn't be there, the foundry wouldn't be here. Most likely, the forestry department wouldn't be here, the DNR wouldn't be here. The only thing that might be standing is the county courthouse. None of this exists. None of it. And it's not only revenue for the city. And I want to make that clear because this, even though it's needed revenue for the city, but it also generates what is it, $230 a day or something per head stay, for people that are staying here. So I think I would be all for putting 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, however many we can stick in there and look nice right now.
There's the key, and look nice. And so
Yeah.
I feel you're entitled to your opinion, and I feel like, you know, that area does have its value in terms of the riparian areas and the buffering and our stormwater runoff. It's got all these beautiful things, right? So we can agree that there's value there, because you even said in a nice manner. And so I think in order to do that to a nice manner, and that's why my motion just didn't say just the overflow area. My motion included, I don't want to miss the opportunity of looking at recreation opportunities along that 16 acres. I feel like it's special. I feel like we can do some stuff there. I feel with more public sensing and some agreement that we can come up with something that looks nice, that I feel like our community can buy into, that can fit in that area.
So here's my question for you. In what time frame?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Because this is,
It's winter. It's winter.
it's a good time for
It's a good
planning,
time.
but then it's gonna be time for grant applications that are
Agreed.
due, you know,
Agreed.
March,
Training
April,
all
May,
the council.
and all of that good stuff. So I would love it if you included a time frame.
Sure, I can come up with a timeframe. I mean, the bottom line is Tony, what do we have on our agendas? Right, like right now, the Parks Committee does not have any charge per se. We've completed our public sensing. We have a couple things on our next agenda that we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do in the next couple months for the winter, kind of assignments. We're done with our input into the comprehensive plan. And so, I mean, the public input that we did, when did I start that? I started that, and I was gone half the summer, and I started that in June, you know? And so I feel like if you would, you know, it's a little tougher on holidays, so let's just be a little nice. But I mean, I would say that we could have some recommendations and do some public meetings in January and February and come back by March, you know? I mean, I know you want to do it in December. I'm not going to get anybody to come anywhere in December. That's the bottom line. I want to be realistic, because November 15th, there is like Thanksgiving and Christmas. I am not going to give the public to come. Well, maybe we should have a Christmas bake or something. Maybe I can get something. But really, January and February is when you're going to have your public sessions. And so, I mean, March is the best time frame I can give you to be
But if we have to apply for
Tom,
grants,
hold on one second. Karen?
Jen, just a question. I mean, when we talked about bringing this back to the Parks Committee, I thought it was to get more expert input in terms of how to lay out and what we could do, rather than starting, or are you suggesting we're starting from scratch again with more public input? And I love public input. I spent 40 years as a planner, so I know all about the importance, the significance of public input. But we have received considerable public input. Are we not now at a point of, if we're in agreement that we want to do some improvements or some activity on that property, are we not at the point of saying, okay, what do we need to do to make it look great? And public input can give us a whole array of issues, but isn't it time now to begin to look specifically at how we can make it look nice?
Yeah, and I think that would be your starting point. And I think that when I'm talking about public input, I would say that, you know, in order to come up with like what you want to do, I think you want to get the community's input. So it would be a sense, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I think if I don't do public input, people are just going to sit here in the audience and stare at us and be like, can I talk? Can I talk? And so I feel like having a couple sessions, just like we did this summer, of what do you want to see there? Put some sticky notes. You want group camping? You want tent sites? You want nothing? Agreed. But if this body agrees that we want to move forward with the 2015 plan, then there's some great ideas in the starting point there. And yes, I think that would be the starting point. So I'm not saying start over, but I'm not going to say that we shouldn't get public input, because I think we should.
So you're saying take the 2015 plan and extend it out, looking at not just West End Park expansion, but further? Or
I think if we want to do further, then it would take a lot longer. I'm not going to lie. I think that if you know, if the council has an appetite and would like us to move forward, you can give us a specific charge to just look at the rustic camping and your possibilities in a certain area. I'm fine with that. I am totally flying by the seat of my pants here. I don't have a plan. This is discussion, because I think there's a lot of different things that council could go over right now. Scott, did you say something?
And
Keep staring.
hold on, I'll turn it over to Scott in a second.
And we'll talk in a little bit while, and I will open the floor. I just want to hear from the council members, and then I definitely will open the floor.
Thank you for mentioning that. So I just want to remind council that if you were to express an interest in developing some rustic camping in the open field site, which is in line with the plan at this time, it is not saying we're going to go out and buy yurts tomorrow. We are going to give it some more thought and planning on what that would look like and how much actually that would cost and how we would want to put plantings there, because we have to go out and get a proposal. And that would all be part of that proposal and the cost, and then that's what we would.
I think the question is, do we have to go for a proposal? I feel if we go for a proposal, we're gonna kind of get what we got back here. Which is like, I could have drawn that up. Think,
well, regardless of whether we're going out or we come up with a plan.
I feel like we have enough expertise in our community, and that's where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to go out to our community, go to the folks at Bayfield County who do design for recreation. You know, like tap into our great people in our community to come up with what I would call the design. I just don't think it's rocket science. I think that we have enough natural resource expertise and enough people, and on the Parks Committee alone, we have people that have done this a ton.
Sure.
So I don't think we need to spend any more money. I feel like the Parks Committee, and again, if council feels like they want to give that charge a little bit more sidebars of what they want the Parks Committee, I'm all for that. But I don't feel like we need to go back out. I feel like that's something that the Parks Committee can do.
Okay. Are you willing to amend your motion to put the timeline in there for the open field area?
I'm willing to do whatever. Like I said, I have a motion on the table to get discussion and talking, and Scott, please say something.
Okay. Scott, do you have something that you'd like to share?
Making me speak.
You're grumbling.
I was not grumbling. I do believe that a time frame would be appropriate, because what will happen here is if you just pass the first half of this without having a definitive second half, we're gonna be doing a half project, and then we're gonna have to go back and change that anyway. Because what's gonna happen is you do have to get finalized engineering proposals for a construction document ready to bid. Okay, so that's going to require the detail of what we're going to do on the overflow area, and it's going to include the bathroom and how that's going to, specifically what needs to be done to construct it and all those specifications and whatnot. So if we're going to do that, and then we're going to add in something later on, that's fine. We'll give you a little more time with that, because we can apply for grant funding for the first half, whether any of the campground stuff may be eligible. The restroom, we certainly would hope so. And we can work on that, because your realistic time frame here is once we get all that and we get final construction costs, then we can put together the rest of the financing. How much can we pay for in-house and what we've been saving up, and what we may have to borrow for it, because I only want to do one borrowing, and that borrowing is going to happen in about 1 year. So then once for the highway project, and then once we have this, because I only want to do this once, so I do not want to have separate projects all over the place. So this all, the timing of all this has to be, is very important and smooth. And I don't want any interruptions. I don't want any, the plate is overflowing, and so we've got to stay focused on what we've got to get done.
Right, and let's be clear, I'm playing the game. like, we all know back in March, I voted against this flat out, but the council's moving forward on it, and so I'm trying to come up with a medium that meets like our community, because I don't even know if we should be doing this with everything that we have on our plate, with the highway, with everything else going on. The council spoke back in March. And so if we have timeframes and the years to do that, then, I mean, maybe we don't even look at the open area, and maybe you just move forward and just do the overflow area and get the bathroom. I mean, if you look at the numbers, that's $40,000 in a return on investment in 9.5 years. Well, that rate, 9.5 years, is based on us getting no grant funding, right? It's based on the worst case scenario, and that's a $40,000 revenue. So if the council wants, we can just do that, and there's your project. Or you can look forward and do something more if the council has the appetite to do that, and then we have to put a tighter time frame on it. I'm open, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Hold on, look at Scott going and Scott still.
My recommendation is limit any further discussion on it to that first field. If you want to consider rustic camping at Memorial or something like that, that's a separate project down the line. Stick to what you want to do at this first section of West End. That's all we can bite off right now. And
The open field.
the open field.
Yeah, it's just slightly disappointing. I don't like to rush things because, and the Parks Committee was to table this discussion until we had more, what was it? Let me read it.
Information.
Parks Committee was more, of looking at different opportunities for where the placement of the years could be.
And I read that as within the area we were talking about. Tom and then Mary.
I say we go ahead with the overflow and putting 4 yurts over there for now, instead of having to do this twice, and having to borrow money twice. Do it once, get it over with, and done. And that bathroom sitting on top will eliminate an ecological hazard waiting to happen with those damn porta potties sitting down around the lakefront.
Mary. Okay, Mary.
So I've been pushing for campground expansion on West End Park. In my experience, this feels like deja vu. Because I, as an employee of the city, as a lifeguard and swim instructor for 20 years, as the Park and Recreation Director for a number of years, having sat on the Park Committee, the Planning Commission, before I even saw council, this has been a topic of discussion, and it is deja vu land for me. So I have made it very clear to the people that have called me that I'm willing to listen and definitely take in their reasons why they, number one, want to see absolutely no expansion, or two, a limited, and then the outright, why is it taking so long to even have it at the table for discussion? So that is my pre-part. I have been fighting all along for the expansion. I do believe that the overflow is necessary to be improved, but as I told people, I would like to see that open field area that we're calling it. I was disappointed at the number of people that called me and just said, no, 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 and never even went down and walked on the property. They admitted to me they never walked on the property down there to understand what we were talking about, to understand that it's not on top of the walking trail. So that, number one, was disappointing. When you say hello to the telephone and that other person's already with the chip on their shoulder ready to start, that was a disappointing week for me too. So I was telling people I'd like to see it in phases. This is not going to sit on the back of the taxpayer. There are grant monies that we are going after. This is not a fly-by-night kind of thing that it'll be. There are grants to go after in the recreational part. I am happy just to see movement. I am happy to see the increase in the number of campsites. If there's a balance to come out, then maybe, as we're talking now, we don't put the motorhomes over in the open field area. We restrict them from the overflow and heading west. I can live with that. I just want to see forward motion. The other thing too that people, Dave, you pointed out, this increase in campgrounds, I've talked to people that said that the people that are down there, whether it's seasonal or not, are very much a part of the community. The money they spend in our stores downtown, the money that they go to the churches and do their tithing into the churches that come from the campground. So that is a very huge part above and beyond the tourism part. They spend a lot of money here in downtown, and we need to keep our businesses up and healthy. That will help. If it will help in this forward movement that we talk phases, like Mary, you pointed out in the plan, I would like to see the overflow and the open space be included. To move east of the open space, to me, I'm not terribly excited about expanding camping. I'm not excited at all about putting camping from there to Washington Avenue. My jump after West End in my world would be to jump to Memorial Park and develop the primitive and other types of glamping, yurty camping east of what exists right now. Because I don't care what it is.
It's fine. I'm not even gonna.
But I want to see movement, and I'm sort of excited, and I'm seeing light at the end of the tunnel here. But when you apply for the grants, I know we'll need engineering, but can we do a thing that says our first part is to improve the overflow and raise the income, and phase 2 would be, I mean, can you do that, or it all comes into one lump? I'm happy with all one lump, frankly, but if there's some kind of,
I'm not exactly sure how they will score it.
Okay.
It's possible.
Is that it for now, Mary?
I wanted to have it. Bottom line, I want it to happen. I want it to happen in the overflow and in the open field area.
Okay, Dave and then Jen.
So I just want to point out that this can has been kicked down the road for decades, you know, and we have got to come to grips that we just can't keep kicking it down the road, you know, and public input is great, gives us a direction. I don't know if this was a true survey and if it truly shows the actual direction that the community would like to see it go. Because it wasn't done, you know.
It wasn't a scientific
survey. And
Which
so
one? My little one?
well, yeah, I mean, like,
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it's a
anytime we go
subset.
out and
Yeah.
get public input, you know, it just depends on who you're talking to.
Total subset.
Right?
Agreed.
And so it's very difficult for us to sit here and make decisions based on some data that might show up in our packet. Because 51 people out of, 2,000 made a comment. So I think it's just time. We need to, as has been said in the planning commission meetings, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and do something. Because the constituents that I've spoken to, I've had just as many tell me that they want this expansion. I've had others say that they don't want any. And I think the people that don't want any don't want to see, they're very environmentally conservative, which is fine. We need a balance between those two types of viewpoints. So, but we need to move forward. Yes. And we need to do something on that 16 acres. It's a field that can be utilized for, economic growth and a place for tourists to enjoy what we have here.
It was Jen and then Karen.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know where to start sometimes, but it's okay. I do think that in terms of true public sensing, that's very difficult to do. I'll say the 2015 plan did do that. Because it was a long-term period that gave a lot of people the input and it was more comprehensive.
Which showed development on that.
Which showed development on that, in that open field. And that's what I keep saying, that was part of that campground expansion plan. I think what the Parks Committee did was also valuable. I think what we would do in the next 3 months is valuable, because I think what's important is bringing our community along, right? And giving people the opportunity to speak, and be part of the process. And so, you know, I feel that, that we can come up with something in that open field area that can be really unique and amazing for our community. I think plopping 4 yurts in there, I think we can do a little better, or 7, or 3, or
just tent sites
or just tent sites. And so that's where I'm having a little bit of the issue. You know, our West End, our park, that plan, it calls for rustic camping. And that means a lot of different things, right? And so I don't feel like this body can come up with exactly what that should look like. We can throw it to Tony, and Tony, poor guy, can try to come up with that and then get slammed at the council meeting, and then Scott can try to do it. Where I would rather take that on as a Parks Committee and try to work with the community as best we can to come up with some options.
How about that timeline?
3 months.
And we could do it. No, it's not 3 months, it's not enough. December, January, maybe 4 months. Anyway, so, and the other thing I want to mention is I also heard loud and clear some other pretty interesting, which we've talked about a little bit, opportunities for revenue. Looking at that seasonal camping, I've heard that loud and clear. I think we should take a look at it. I know it's touchy. I know we couldn't do it, but I think we should look at it. And I also think the reservation system is really critical. And we tried that before and it didn't work, but I also think we should look at that because I think we're pretty full right now. I think we could be totally full if we had a reservation system. So I think there's a couple other ways that we can look at it in the future too. And I just don't want to ignore what I heard from the community, that there's other ways to raise revenues in our campgrounds. So I just want to point that out.
Understood. First Karen and then Tom. I agree with Mary that I don't have the history that Mary has, but I know that this has been a long-term issue and it never seems like we come to a conclusion in terms of moving forward. And having said that, there's always a different population, a different time, a different set of circumstances that impacts, I think, council's decisions and discussions about it. But we have heard from both on the survey, the public meetings, the people that came tonight, which has been very, very helpful, that there are some things that clearly need to be preserved and other things that, and areas where we can expand and bring in some additional revenue. And I think that the motion in front of us does that if we can add, as the mayor is suggesting, a timeline. It allows us to move forward with the overflow area per the original plan, and also task the Parks Committee to come up with a specific plan for the open field area. And I guess I would like to see it maybe by February. Jen, can that happen? February?
I think we talked about bringing the plan to council in the March meeting potentially, so that.
Okay, by the March meeting of the council. That would give us an opportunity to look at it during the spring area as we move forward. So I think it is movement, Dave. I think we're doing something rather than just saying, you know, we can't do anything. So I think we should look at voting on this motion.
I move to amend the motion to have the Parks Committee submit a proposal at the March meeting
Of the council?
of the council.
I would second that amendment.
For the green space, I mean, for the open field area.
For the open field area.
So Carl is moving to amend the motion to include a Parks Committee plan coming to council for the open field portion at the March meeting. And the second was Karen.
Can I second that, Max, if I seconded the original motion?
Yes. Okay, so second by Karen.
I can accept that amendment.
No.
Just a good amendment. I'm always trying to learn the process. Okay.
Yes, yes, you do have to accept the amendment, is
I
what
do.
Max is
Yes.
saying.
Vote on it,
We do.
yes.
So, do we vote on the amendment first?
Yes.
Could we have the public feedback first before you vote?
We're not voting, we're going through.
We're just talking about process. Okay, so we have the original motion and the second, which we have been discussing. Now we have an amendment and a second. So can we continue discussion or do we need to vote on something?
Discussion should be on the amendment.
On the amendment, yes.
Now.
Yes.
So
And
moving,
then vote on the amendment,
And then
and then motion as amended if it's passed.
When can we open the floor?
anytime now, right?
If it's about the current thing under discussion, the amendment.
I don't want it to be on the amendment. But I don't have a choice.
Okay, so Tom, I'm gonna let Tom go because I told him he was next anyway.
That's not what the amendment.
We should move forward with this plan for more than one reason. We only have one industry. And that's terrific. We need to grow that. Okay, we're 35 years behind time. But eliminating seasonal campsites or places is going to affect workers that log, because they stay in that park, they pay the seasonal fee to live in that park while they're working out here in the woods.
Well, we're not talking about that. Talking about the amendment. I hear you, I hear you.
Since it was a later discussion.
Okay.
Can I make
Thank
a
you.
motion to open the floor?
Yes, you may, as long as it's to address our amendment.
Oh, then I gotta wait. Can I do it after the amendment passes and then we can talk about the motion?
Yeah.
That'd be a better time.
So first,
So the amendment is to
to
At a
include
timeline.
to include
add a timeline.
the timeline for the development of the open field portion to March, to come back to the council. Everyone understand the amendment to the motion?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Can I make a
Call the
motion to open
question.
the floor?
I'm recognizing Jen for a motion to open the floor first. Because we've been waiting to do that, and it's back to the original motion as amended that we're talking about now.
Right.
So
I
there's a
made a
motion
motion
to
to open the floor.
open the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Jen to open the floor, second by Laura, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who was that? Mary Ann.
So 2 nays. So the motion carries.
Can we just clarify one thing before we let the public speak? Or do we have to just?
No, I think now that we have opened the floor, we need to just recognize anyone. No, we can clarify.
Continue discussion with the board.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm just, we keep referring to the plan. Are we referring to the 2015 plan?
That's what I'm referring to.
Or are we referring to the last plan that the council approved? Or not approved, but the one that we asked to get designed?
No, I'm referring to the 2015 plan.
That's the plan.
And there were.
That's a
I was
proposal.
Referring to this
Right.
plan, meaning the most recent.
The one that was
That I-
drawn up by whatever firm we,
The proposal.
yeah,
Yeah, that should be called the proposal.
That's the proposal.
that's, okay. All right, I just want to make sure that we're not talking about one, because this plan, the overflow calls for, isn't there a gazebo and all kinds of other?
Kind of like in the bottom area, it calls for like, cut into that hill.
But should we not clarify what we're actually referring to then? In this plan, we're only referring to the RV sites in the.
Sites.
Right, in the overflow area.
Correct. That was the motion.
That was my motion.
Okay, I'm just saying, because
Based on this or based on what we?
Jen said.
My
she was-
motion was to implement the proposal.
That was my understanding.
For the RV sites in the overflow area and potentially RV and tent sites, correct?
The
Okay.
one that we just received from Cooper Engineering.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Tony.
right.
Okay. Anyone in the audience would like to be recognized at this point, now that the floor is open? Rob?
My name is Roth Edwards, and I live at 221 West Sixth Street, Washburn. And first, I'd simply just like to thank the council for its time, its diligence, its service on this vital matter. Because as our lakefront goes, so goes Washburn. And so I would like to make a point that a few of us have been hitting especially hard on, literally for years, as long as this plan has been in motion and longer, which is that at bottom, the role and the job of the council is ultimately to accurately seek, determine, and also follow the majority will of the people of Washington. And that is what we have to do. First and foremost, my opinions are well researched, they're valuable. Certainly I have as much research and time and, as I say, just door to door talking to people on this matter as anybody, and that's valuable. Each of your opinions are valuable. Scott Kluger's opinion is valuable. However, again, ultimately, we do have to do what the people of Washburn want to do. And so with that said, I do also want to point out that this really is not a question simply of campground expansion, because as far as I could discover tonight, most all of us, including myself, favor, and I have favored it, and I have it on record as favoring it as early as 2015. I'll produce that letter, which I submit to the Duluth Tribune tomorrow. But I have never opposed campground expansion. We want this. The question is where? And we cannot have nature preservation and RV and or yurt site in the same spot. And so when we're talking about our natural area, our 16 acres, which again is the area on the lakeside of Holman Lakeview Drive between 6th Avenue West and the existing condominiums, we're talking about 16 acres. And that 16 acres is approximately 1/19 of Washburn's overall holdings of open space and parklands.
Are you including the cemetery in that?
I'm including the information from your own packet. It's in your own packet. I'm including the 300 acres of open green space and parklands. It's to be precise, 298 acres.
That was in this packet?
It's in the Parks Committee packet, July 27.
Parks packet, okay.
Parks packet, July 27. And there's some 215 acres of parklands and some 84 acres of open and green space. So again, when we're talking about the 16 acres on Holman Lakeview Drive, we're talking about 1/19. We can find other places for RVs and or yurts. There's no question about that. And finally, I would like to just underscore Councilman Dave Anderson's point, is that when we're talking about these surveys, and we're talking about, first of all, just thank you profoundly to the whole council and to the one who spearheaded this effort to continue with our public comment and the four who voted for it. Without that, we wouldn't be standing here. We'd already have RVs on that open field area. However, we're talking about 67 respondents. That's about 3% of Washington's population. On the other hand, in 2004, we had a citywide survey that reached over 600 people and represented over 33% of Washington's population. And that's what we need again. If we are to accurately find, discover, and follow, and that follow is a key piece, then we need another citywide survey and or public hearing. And this tonight, which is again well appreciated, does not is not a public hearing. It's simply public comment at the outset of a city council meeting, and thank you for opening the floor. I do appreciate that very much, and thank you again for your time and your service. And let's just make the right decision. Let's make the informed decision, and let's do the decision, let's follow the decision, again, that the majority of Washburn citizens desire and want, according to their experience at Washburn. And also, as I've said before, the people who just want to come here and enjoy Washburn with us. And they come here for that aspect. And if we develop that 2 acres of the 16 acres of Home Lakeview Drive, that is a precedent, and we will want to continue with the next open area after that, and the next open area after that, and that is the heart of the jewel of our lakefront. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to say anything at this time?
Hi, my name is Neil Hunt. I live at 815 8th Avenue West. Just moved back to town. 40 years ago, I lived here and a few other places in the area. But, you know, I liked Washburn back then, but it was an industrial shoreline. And it didn't work for me. You know, I don't know, the town just felt in decay at the time to me. I left, and in the meanwhile, I mean, I have lived in 2 towns that were destroyed by tourism. I mean, the entire character of the town was destroyed. A few years ago, I had a personal tragedy, and I hit the road looking for a new place to live. I drove all over the Western United States and part of Canada. Eventually, I found my way back here. I thought, let's take a look. And I found that trail. And, you know, what I did was walk that trail, saw that field. Now, meanwhile, 30 years ago, I bought a print from Carlin. And it looked exactly like that field. I thought, this is where Carlin figured out her inspiration. I call that Carlin's Field. It looks, I could show you the print. It's amazing. Anyway, I looked at that shoreline, and yes, I knew that it had been industrial. But now it was beautiful. And I said, this town's going the right direction. This is the direction. This is the kind of town I want to live in. So I moved here. And so anyway, all I'm saying is, I don't fit anywhere in anyone's economic figures, but I think there's going to be a lot more people like me looking for the right kind of town to move to. And that trail, and that field in particular, it just worked. So, do I sign here? Do I have?
Yes, I think that would be helpful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And welcome back.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public, as long as the floor is open? Anyone else? Anyone else? One more, okay.
That's a question though, while it is open, so we can get response.
Can you just talk into your mic?
Oh, yeah. So, how do people that have handled the survey that took in hundreds and hundreds of opinions, how did that go? How much work did that create?
You mean to make this
We
plan?
were talking about, yes.
The 2015 plan?
Something Ross was saying about.
He was talking about 2004, I think.
That's when there was a condo development that was going into that whole, actually the whole area. And it went to the city, a referendum, and the referendum was condo development, no condo development. So that is and that actually was, I think, 6-2 or 6-1.
600, so yeah,
It was hands down, the community obviously did not want condos there. So he's referring to that as a city by referendum, I believe is what Rock was.
My point is only that a survey may not be feasible to do of that magnitude again. And I would like to know if on either end of the room here, whether having an opportunity to have on the agenda public citizen proposals presented, or just so that we can talk about it each meeting in the next 3 months.
Just to clarify, that's, I think, what the Parks Committee is taking on,
Right.
is that process.
Right.
So not here at the
No.
council, are we gonna be
But
doing
is
public
that-
comment on?
Well, no, I want to know if
plan
that's
Until we have a plan
sufficient.
from the Parks Committee.
If that is sufficient and satisfactory to the public as a platform.
Again, just to remind you, we had 3 years of public input to come to this plan that we are now trying to implement.
Which is why I would like to point out that these meetings in the next few months will be a great place to come and share your expertise that you want to make sure is heard. So tell your friends, spread the word, because we don't have secretaries to help us do mailings and make sure we contact everybody or go door to door. So this is the opportunity.
Okay, so speaking of which, we have someone from the public who would like to speak. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just wondering if y'all have really been hearing some of what had gotten said tonight by the public. They're saying tourism isn't the only thing that we survive on. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. If other towns and areas, regions, whatever, can develop things like manufacturing, like building solar panels, as the one gal had commented on, and other types of business, it kind of behooves us to keep that open perspective and open mind rather than going down this narrow path of, well, we put time into doing this, and so let's just follow the path that we've laid out, regardless of if things around us are changing. I don't think it's fair to say it's just an overgrown industrial zone, not a pristine area. Before it was an overgrown industrial zone, it was a pristine area. And that's part of what people want to take it back to and preserve, because things are being sucked up by the, constant industrialization and building up. That's what people want to get away from and come here. And I'm wondering if you really heard when people talked over and over about why can't you crunch some numbers, take the time, crunch some numbers, come up with the possible sources of revenue by raising rates first before continuing the march that says we have to vote on this, we have to make a motion, we have to implement it, we have to, just because that's what we've been doing. And yes, maybe some of us are slow to pick up on what's been going on because of our distractions in life. I admit I could have been more involved sooner. I do think that the idea of taking a look financially at the possibility of raising revenues through raising rates would be what you'd want to be making a motion on and working towards. And I do think that Jen had a good idea in talking about having more public input meetings to see if there is a better way to implement when it comes to going beyond just the overflow area and camping on a rustic level. It is a cautionary thing, I think, is what most of us are saying tonight, to proceed with caution at this point. And also, yes, there was some talk about the difference between the proposal and the plan. And I'm glad that someone brought that up too, because it started to get confusing between what was and what was then and what was worked on and what is now. And I think that for the sake of some of us, if you are going to make a motion or an amendment, we weren't quite sure what was being voted on and how, because we didn't quite hear what got said. So I'm also asking for, could you explain that before you vote on it?
Sure, we'll repeat the motion before it's voted on.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, like Ross said, thank you very much. This is something I know you all are taking your time on and working on and doing behind the scenes a lot of time. And so it is something that again, like everyone says, once it's gone, it's gone. And we don't want to lose Paradise just for the sake of a parking lot for RVs.
Thank you. Just to answer your question, which I think we can do now that the floor is open on a particular item, which is different than public comment. To respond to your comment about the fees, we very recently voted on the fees for next year. So we are not going to be looking at the fees at this moment for the immediate future. I think it's a good point that we should perhaps look at that in addition to doing some development of camping sites, whatever that looks like. Because I will remind folks that may not know, we are literally going to need to start cutting again unless we can bring in some more revenue. We have lots of open space and green space and park space that needs to be taken care of, and we can't afford to do it. Obviously, as people have pointed out, the playground has needed refreshing for years, and we just can't do it unless we have some more revenue coming in. And we do have a plan that did get a lot of public input, and we need to act on it at some point instead of constantly asking for more public input every time we get to a point of decision. So there does need to come a point, at some point, where we are done and we just need to make a decision. And the further we kick it down, then the more new people are gonna not know about the decision, the process, and then more new people are gonna wanna weigh in on it. And I don't disregard the desire to do that, but I do want you to know that everybody here cares about this city. We care about the future of this city. We know that even though some people don't want to realize it, we do rely on tourism. It supports 1 in 4 jobs in the area, and we have to protect our natural areas in order to benefit from the people that come here to enjoy it and from the people that are moving here to enjoy it. And we need more housing, which thankfully we have a project that looks like it might happen, hopefully, in the city that will allow for more people to move here who want to live here, and that will help our revenue situation. But adding campsites, as has been determined, is literally the only thing that we can do other than raising fees that will bring some more revenue to our city that desperately needs it. We don't want to keep cutting. We didn't want to lose our recreation department, and we had to cut the recreation department. That has caused a huge, gap in the community for those of us who moved here and had kids who didn't now have a recreation program to participate in. We all are very much aware of all of the aspects of this decision, and I think take it very seriously. So thank you for bringing up all those points. Did you have something that you would like to add?
20 seconds.
Sure.
This is anecdotal, but I did go door to door with Roth and others for 3 days, handing out the brochures. And the response we got was, one, maybe everyone else was enthusiastic about keeping the nature trail the way it is. And I think sometimes when you're faced with having the financial responsibilities and you've got to pay the bills, I can see where you're coming from, but I'm concerned that maybe the voice of the people, it was like comments here tonight, it was a very similar ratio. I think people are very strong about protecting the lake shore. They don't have to pay the bills, but I just want to say that again. I think it bears repeating.
Sure, thank you. And just to remind everyone, we are not talking about doing anything to the nature trail at all. And if you don't want to look at the yurts, I suggest you look towards the lake.
Well, and I just want to be clear, I feel like I have listened to people, and I feel like, you go door to door and everybody has their lens, right? And everyone knows I'm a straight shooter, right? You have your lens. I've had a lot of people call me and say, I can't believe you're gonna put a yurt in. I don't want to walk by a yurt. Like, you are not walking by a yurt, okay? Now, if we feel like, I personally, again, like, if you were to put a yurt like over by where you're going down to Bear Naked, it's not.
Their ass?
No. You put a yurt right there.
Washington Avenue.
Washington Avenue. You're gonna see that yurt, because that trail goes right by there. In some places, you can tuck yurts in. We can do vegetation buffering with like some shrubs. We can do some different things where I think that we can keep what I call our scenic integrity on the trail. Will it be difficult? Maybe, but I mean, I think, can we do that as a community? Which is why I asked it to go back to the Parks Committee. So I hear that you went door to door, but I also got a lot of phone calls from the brochure of people very not understanding the entire, like, what it would look like. And I don't think we know what it looks like, because right now, I can't tell you what it looks like. It looks to me like a spoke in 3 dots, about 6 dots. That doesn't tell me what it's gonna look like. So I'm hoping that we can find out what it can look like, so our community can actually have the right lens to be able to see what that recreation and, development for rustic camping could look like, because I don't think we know right now.
And just to respond to the question earlier in public comment about the paving, it is, that road is going to be paved and it will stay paved. We're not gonna unpave it. And so we actually, I think, can look at that as an opportunity to have a paved road that makes it easier to enjoy scenic view.
And again, that's a lens.
And it's a lens.
That's a lens.
It's a
Some
lens
people
I'm
don't like
looking
paved
through.
roads, some people do.
Right. I know, my daughter doesn't want to do
I don't want it.
that. Tom?
I have a lot of phone calls Friday and Saturday, and I have another, so 4 people that I've talked to on phone or in person that said that they're against this, and I said to them, I said, well, how about if we do housing on Omaha? This is what was said. It cannot block the view of the theater. I said, what if we try to get an industry in there? This is what was said. We don't want it. We don't need it. By 4 people. The other people that I talked to and the neighbors that I talked to, because I know that nobody was around there, because you got run out, they're all for the park extension. The neighbors right around me in a couple block area, except for maybe one, they're for park extension. Because they understand that we have to have the revenue. Washburn is in trouble.
Karen, can we finish with any other public comment? I think there was one other person that's interested in public comment.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
we need to get on with our agenda.
And I will look for anytime anyone wants
Okay.
to make a motion to close the floor after.
Because this is
after our
number
next
3
meeting.
of 8.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Kathy Hinton, I live at 116 Jonesboro here in town. First, I just, like everybody, I want to say thank you, I appreciate it. One thing that I heard come up was whether the bathroom should be year-round bathroom or not. And if it turns out that they are year-round bathroom, then I almost wonder why you're not looking at yurts instead of RV sites on that upper overflow. And I'm just throwing it out there because if it's a year-round bathroom, and maybe you've hashed that through, but bringing it up again. Big thank you to Jen. I think whether this was a complete survey or not, it's pretty clear what came forward, and it would have been very unfortunate to not have put this out to the public. She was right about that, and I really appreciate the things that she said tonight, and I think that you're giving her respect but tying her hands when you say that she has to have information to you by March. And I hope that somebody's actually looking at a calendar that says that that makes sense based on your grant proposal timelines and the other timelines that you have. Like, is March just like what we can stand to give her, or could she actually have a little bit more?
Probably a little bit of both.
And I just want to put that out there also and just say thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Mayor, I would move to close the floor.
All right, motion to close the floor. Second, wait, discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I just have one more thing. I think that it is an interesting, I think that's one thing that the Parks Committee is why they kind of refer to more time, because there is opportunities, like, could you do yurts instead of the RVs and the 5 campsites? I mean, I think there's lots of possibilities. I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to hit a middle ground here. And so I was trying to come up with a motion that I felt could at least have an opportunity to like pass and get amended. So I do think, you know, Kathy brings up a good point, that I do think, and you've brought that up a couple times too, it is year round, it's a different type of, and I think there's opportunities for yurts in different places. I don't know if the overflow camping is the best spot for that. Again, I mean, that could have been my motion. It was almost my motion to like change the proposal to RV, a couple yurts, some tents. Again, we could do a million different things. So my motion was to go with the proposal as is, but I hear you, Kathy. It was one of my sketches.
So the motion is to, the amended motion is to proceed with a plan or to proceed with the proposal for full-service RV sites and tents on the overflow camping area with a plan to look at what could potentially be developed on the open field area to come back by March.
So that's with the bathroom on that overflow.
What's that?
With the bathroom on the overflow.
And the bathroom. Yes.
That's part of the
And
proposal.
the bathroom is part of the proposal, yeah. So that's the motion, the amended motion that is on the table. Is there any more discussion?
I call the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was something. Do we need to take a 5-minute bio break at all, or are we just gonna go?
We've got,
Take a break if needed.
we've got important issues.
Yes, we do. This was one of the big ones.
I'm not denying that, but the others are important also, like the budget.
Like the budget.
And if anyone cares to stay for the budget segment where we go into the line-by-line detail of our financial situation, feel free to stay and join us.
Fun times. Or you can go to beer.
Okay, all right, let's move on, everyone. Enough discussion. We are moving on to, I'm looking at the wrong agenda. All right, tab 3, discussion and action on certified survey map for 101 Williamson Road. Mark Stilton, petitioner. This is tab 3 of your packet.
Here, I would move approval of the proposed survey map.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Carl. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and action on resolution 22-009 to amend the Bay Area Rural Transit Charter to include Price County.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Carl. Any questions or discussion?
I have no questions. I'm on that board.
Mhm.
There's gonna be no charge for Price County coming on to the city of Wash. It's just gonna be the park is expanding and into Price County. There's a shop going up there for them. They're also looking at buying 2 electric buses.
Right, so is this just a nicety that they're letting us know this? Like, I guess
No, what
We
has,
We have to change the bylaws.
They're amending their bylaws.
the bylaw is being changed to a charter,
Okay,
and then this is what we're,
so we have to,
right, we have to vote on
I
this.
didn't think we were so important.
Yes,
No,
we are a
we
partner.
We are.
We are
We're a partner.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, a public hearing, discussion, and action on recommendation to list the Washburn City Hall as a local historic property. Tab 5 of your packet.
Mayor, we have discussed this item on 2 previous occasions, And I would urge approval, and I would move for approval of designating the Washburn City Hall as his local historic property.
First, we need to, I would need a motion to open a public hearing.
I would open for the public hearing.
Thank you. Well, is there a second? I think I heard Dave on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone here who would like to address the item for listing Washburn City Hall as a local historic property? Please come forward. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion by Tom, second by Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then.
Okay, now, this item has come to us on 2 other occasions. Hearing no comments from the public, I would move that Washburn City Hall be designated as a local historic property.
Motion by Karen, second by Dave. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, another public hearing, discussion, and action, this time on the 2022 payable in 2023 municipal tax levy. I would entertain a motion to open.
Open the floor for public hearing.
Thank you.
Second?
Motion by Dave, second by Karen to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would anyone like to comment on our municipal tax levy, general fund, capital fund, et cetera, et cetera?
Is that for the public or?
This is a public hearing. Anyone here from the public may comment on the tax levy, general fund budget, library levy exemption. Yeah, come on up.
I would just like to,
You have to state your name again, sorry.
no, again.
You don't have to write it down if you already did, but.
Okay, Dawn Belisle. I would just like to, address the council to perhaps, I know it's probably too late for this budget season, maybe not, I don't know, to consider, putting into their budget a certain amount that maybe they could be paying towards the club for recreation. They don't right now sponsor anything, and I thought it was mentioned here just a few minutes ago about how we used to have one, how it used to be sponsored. It wouldn't be asking the city to do that much, you know, just a donation for us every year. But that way it would help with the daily goings on of the club and keep it going for the whole community.
Do you have a dollar amount you're recommending?
I don't.
Care to come
I'll
up
throw
with
it out
one?
there, $1,000 a month.
A month? $1,000 a month?
Yeah.
All right. We will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you much.
Anyone else from the public on the public hearing for the levy? Seeing none, I would, so Carl motion to close the public hearing. Dave second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I would look for a motion to open discussion on the tax levy.
I'll make that motion.
You are motioning to approve as presented?
Yeah. Not this.
No.
Yeah.
You got a public hearing.
We just did the public hearing. So now we have to make a motion and discuss and take action on the levy.
The 2022.
Right.
On the levy,
That's my
yeah.
motion.
Second. Okay, so we had a motion by Tom, second by Mary, was it? Okay. So this is your opportunity, last chance. If we do want to make line by line changes, this would be the final opportunity before adopting the tax levy.
We want to address the memo.
Yes, I think that would be wise, thank you. Are you referring to the proposal potential to increase the pay for the housing authority
Yeah,
and or other council members?
yes, I honestly haven't read it thoroughly enough to understand, so I'm wondering if we could get an explanation of what this is about.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
I need to excuse myself from discussion on this item since I am a member of the plan commission, of the housing.
From the housing authority. Okay. Scott?
So this has been an issue for several years because the housing authority is a unique combination of both city representatives and county representatives. I received this request from one of the members. The county next year will be paying each of their housing authority members $75 per meeting, and the city for many years has been at $25 for its committee stipend pay. So there's been this disparity, whether if you're a county member, you get now will be 3 times more than the city. So the question is, do you want to even that up and make it 75? Do you just want to do that for the housing authority? Do you want to do that for all the committees that receive a stipend? Do you want to do that, and then will that change what the council stipend is? So it opens a very large potential number of changes. Of course, elected officials don't receive a change in any stipend until after their next election. But does that explain what the issue is?
When you say other committees, do you mean like Parks Committee, oh. So,
No. So the only committees that receive stipend are Plan Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals would, if they would meet, Personnel Finance Committee.
Yeah, I guess I've never even known how much I actually.
Can you point us to where that is in the budget, or so we can find it? I mean.
So council stipends will be in the council area, Housing Authority, Plan Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals will be in those particular line items, which are going to be on page. Plan Commission is on page 22. Zoning Board of Appeals is on page 22. Housing Authority is going to be, is that on page?
But we're talking about a fairly small dollar amount in the big picture. And so the appointed members would be able to receive that change immediately upon decision?
Correct.
And just the electeds would have to wait till after the next.
They would see as a beginning.
So when we say a fairly small, I mean,
So I'm looking at $1,000 here is the total budgeted amount, but actually spent was 232 in 2021. Is that correct?
That doesn't make any sense.
Is this, am I not looking at the right page 22 under planning?
Go up.
Oh, planning commission. So $1,500 is the total that's currently paid out, and that's at $25?
Correct.
So just keep that in mind. I mean, you don't want, if you triple it, that's kind of substantial. If you double it, that's still.
I was gonna say, I'm opposed to, I mean, none of us here are doing this for
Yeah, we aren't.
conversation in any way. I mean, we're doing this out of the graciousness of our heart and time, and I think that you could zero that out and not pay me anything, and I'd still be here every month.
Sure, understood, excellent. Does the county, is the county $75 new, or that's what,
My understanding is that is what they're gonna be doing for next year.
okay, thank you. Jen?
I guess from my perspective, when I look at this kind of stuff, and like I just heard Dawn talk about like the club, and I've been thinking about the club a lot because I've been watching what the club's doing for our community and for our kids, and how the city used to run that and we don't, and I've had people approach me and like, can we help out with the club? And I get it. I get that we're strapped, and I get that, and I think there's no way we can do $1,000 a month, but can we make a nominal contribution this year of like $1,000, $1,500, or whatever, if we save money here? Just like, I would rather see something like that than increasing fees for us.
So just to clarify, the motion that's on the table right now is
Oh, yeah, sorry.
as presented without any increase, is that correct?
Well, your motion was referring to the resolution, not to the budget.
Right.
So you kind of
Sorry.
skipped ahead of the line items here.
So,
We're here,
yeah, but,
we didn't do this.
right.
We have a motion for this.
Oh.
Because we're all kind of rushing.
So, okay, so the motion is just on the tax levy regardless of the details of the budget. Sorry.
I can vote on that.
Okay. So is there any other discussion about the overall tax levy, which is what the motion is that's on the table? Thank you for reining that in. Then seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then I would look for a motion on the general fund, debt service, and capital budget matters and line item adjustments to get us started with discussion.
I motion that we add a line item of $1,000 to have a nominal contribution to the club this year.
$1,000 total.
Like a donation.
It's a donation. We can't do $1,000 a month, I get that, but I feel like I'm not doing anything.
Is there some idea of where?
No, I don't.
Is there a second on $1,000 total?
I mean, I would
for the
like
club?
those, I'd second it, so we can discuss how that would be possible.
I have no idea how it would be possible. I'm not on the finance committee. I get that things are tough. I also get that we have a lot of wiggle room sometimes, and Scott pulls money out of nowhere. Sorry, Scott, you do work miracles.
Well, he budgets conservatively,
I
so that
know
there
he
is wiggle room.
does. I know he
That's
does, and I don't
exactly-
know if the finance committee had ever talked about any contribution to the club, but I just know a lot of people have been talking to me about it. I know that they're doing great things for our community. I know that they're struggling for money. I know that they're doing a bunch of different things, and I feel like for what they contribute, that nominal $1,000 to the community at this point would show good faith. That's all I got to say.
Karen?
I agree with what Jen is saying, and yes, we didn't in this budget cycle, but in previous budget cycles, we have talked about a contribution to the club. $1,000 obviously can be easily found because there's going to be a line item somewhere that isn't fully subscribed, so $1,000 is possible. It says that, I don't know what it says.
I don't know what it says either.
It isn't the 12.
It says that we're thinking about it.
Hopefully it's not insulting.
No, well, yeah.
Insulting?
It almost is in some respects.
Is
that every $1,000 helps,
Yeah.
I know that. I just think that we need to look carefully, and I'm not opposed to it in any regard, but we need to look carefully at all the capital improvements that we cannot address in this budget. And again, $1,000 can be found.
And that's not out of the capital fund, that's a different fund.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it all ties together. Yeah, so $1,000 can be found.
I just want to have a discussion on it. I just feel like that right now that we gave them a building for $1 and they saved it and now they're doing.
Yeah, there's no disagreement.
No,
with
and
that.
maybe $1,000 is insulting, and I'm sorry if it is.
Well-
I didn't mean it to be insulting. I meant it to be a start of a conversation.
I would like to do 20,000 a year or more.
I love, but Scott's.
We can't.
There's a reason that it was given up and why we don't have a Parks and Rec department.
And why we can't do 20,000.
Right, and so if $1,000 is frustrating, then maybe it is better that we save nothing right now, because it does show some commitment of the city to. So this is the point though, is that if I looked out and I saw that space when we said 1,000 and it was kind of not great, like, because I think there's a belief that we can do more, but it's just like everything that goes in, and I was part of one of the playground builds, but it was hard to understand when you were busting your butt to make these things happen because it's an improvement for everybody. We're still creating more work that we're expecting our city employees to manage or maintain. So the city isn't actually responsible for the tennis courts, and yet everybody thinks it is and wonders why no one's maintaining that when nobody in the city chose to put them in. This is how I understand it. This is not a comparable. No, you're looking at me like that's not a real story.
I think we're in charge of the tennis court.
Yeah. Okay, so, we're in charge of it because it is city property.
Right.
But, who came up with the money to put it in? Was this something?
Regardless, yeah. We ended up being responsible
The
for it.
point is, yes, so we can't afford to maintain the clubs, so.
We can.
Yeah.
Yes, so you're free to do this, and that's your choice, but I will just point out that this is a change of policy. Several years ago, the council made a decision at the time to stop all donations to all organizations. So just be aware that if we're going to restart this, it will open the door. So,
I didn't know that policy.
but, if you want to do it in the name of recreation, the council's free to do so. Right? I'm just pointing out that this is now a change from what our standard is.
Everything's so complicated.
So at some point in the somewhat distant past, decision was made.
Probably about 10 years ago.
It wasn't when I was
So,
married.
so knowing that is a policy that was voted on at one point, do we want to wait and revisit the policy so that we can thoroughly think through whether this is going to set a precedent that then?
And that's fine. Like I said, I just trying to honor that organization and everything they're doing for our community. And I know there's tons of organizations that are doing great things for our community. But in particular right now, I'm watching the club and the people and the kids that are going there and what they're providing.
And the adults playing pickleball
and
walking.
Yeah. So yeah, we can revisit it. I'm fine if we vote it down. It's been a great discussion.
Anyone else?
I think we should revisit it, redo it.
At another time?
Right, at another time. Maybe we can do that next month.
Is the motion being withdrawn?
Well, we have a motion and a second on the table, so we will vote on that motion unless it is withdrawn. So this is the general fund, debt service and capital. Any other line item adjustments that anyone would like to make? Or do we have to vote on each one separately? Or is this, because you made a motion to do this, but we're looking for a motion for the whole thing, including.
It's your motion specifically to donate $1,000 a year.
I think that's
not a line, not.
Or in this year.
A one-time.
This is, so the motion is to.
It was just out of this budget as a gesture, yes.
$1,000.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And we can bring it up in a different way, maybe come up with a better way to help the club, because I really feel like that's important.
Okay.
Thanks for the conversation, I really appreciate it.
Understood.
Got anything else, Scott?
Okay, so any other discussion or motions to be made on the general fund, debt service, and capital budget matters and line item adjustments? Something that I had brought up at another meeting was the fact that we had not put money aside in our capital budget for tennis court improvements. And one other thing that I don't remember now. But yes, I believe it was sidewalk. We don't have any room in the budget for those things at this time. I'm gonna keep bringing those things up until we find somewhere that we can deal with that. Okay. Tom?
The sidewalks is why I was asking about if we could make that a tip. That's a whole lot of money, because all those streets that we gotta come down, do that up there.
You mean where the housing development is?
Yeah, if we could take, if that area could be made into a tip so that we could later on use
Sure.
some of that to redo the sidewalks going up Washington Avenue.
Well, right now, let's stay focused on our general fund debt service and capital budget matters and line item adjustments. Anyone have anything else? Or a motion in general?
Motion to accept as presented?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Mary to accept as presented the general fund debt service and capital 2023 budget and no line item adjustments, is that? And then second by Tom. Any other discussion? We've all looked at this, I think. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we need a motion on resolution 22-008 for the county library levy exemption.
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of resolution 22-008, county library levy exemption resolution.
Motion by Karen, second by Dave. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have a budget. Next item, discussion and action on approval of 2023 water and sewer utility budgets. And that's tab 7 of your packet.
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of the 2023 water and sewer utility budgets.
Second.
With the. Second. And then.
Okay, so motion by Karen, was that a second by Laura?
Yeah.
And then Karen, comment.
Just to remind us that staff are going to look to the Public Service Commission for an inflation increase potentially in March 2023. We have a limit on those increases, can only be 3% regarding water, and it would be regarding the water bill, correct? And the other increase that is already in the sewer budget is an increase of roughly 1.5% increase in terms of the sewer charge. Just note that residents will look at that and say, oh, how come that's increased? It changes the rate from 81.71 cents to $84.16 for a standard residential meter. I'm not opposed to those at all. I'm just wanting to underline them so council knows that that increase is already in there, and the potential of one in 23 in terms of water, just so that we're not blindsided by that.
So you're saying that the sewer rate increase is included in the proposed
Correct.
budget?
Correct.
So you're just drawing attention?
Yeah, I'm just drawing attention to
So,
it. Simply because people will call us and ask us about it.
And to that point, everyone probably has seen what has happened in Ashland, where all of a sudden they have a 31% increase that's being proposed. And that's because they failed, I think, over the years to make these small incremental changes to keep up with those expenses. And so,
Yeah, it's just.
maybe we can learn from
Yeah,
that
I mean, I think
painful
we're doing a
lesson.
good job with the incremental, but I do think that, obviously right now, like, people feel like their water bills are high, right? And
But again, the last increase in water was in 2015, and there have been costs, costs have gone up.
Good thing to point out,
Yeah.
right?
So just to, again, I endorse both increases. It's just to alert you all to the fact that it's going to happen. One is going to happen and one may.
Yeah, right.
And
I
maybe,
already got a phone call on it, so. Somebody wrote it back.
maybe once we have all the sewer and water repaired under the street going through town, that'll help them from not having to go fix those water main breaks all the time, and that will help keep the cost down.
Now, all those casting dates dating 1956, man, bomb.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and action on proposed 2023 Harbor Commission budget and slip fees. This is tab 8 of your packet.
I move to approve the Harbor Commission budget for 2023.
Second.
Motion by Carl, second by Karen. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion on the concept to create a tourism committee. So this is only a discussion, but it's an important one. So thank you for bringing it up.
We didn't have any information in the packet, it's just a request for discussion. But of course, I have been, asking questions and clarifications since I became mayor on how this works with room tax and how the commission works, because we used to not have a commission, now we do have a commission. And every time I kind of circle back and look at those things, I learned something new. And then, as you recall, last year was the first year we ever had a presentation from the Room Tax Commission, which we should have been getting every year, on how those dollars are spent. And for whatever reason, it was an oversight, because it was never done. So it was just, until I started knocking at the door and being the annoying question asker. Anyway, we did get our first presentation. And then, as Max and Scott know in particular, I keep circling back on this issue and asking more questions and getting clarifications. And, I've had discussions with Dave and some local hoteliers who aren't real happy with how the tax dollars are being spent. And so, they're asking
the room tax?
the room tax that,
Okay.
so the room tax is an ordinance that the city has in place, requiring our lodging to charge a room tax in addition to the hotel rate or room rate. And that money comes back to the city. The city keeps 10% of it, and 90% of it goes to the Tourism Commission.
Oh, not the change.
So the Tourism Commission, now that we are in a zone, we've agreed to have a tourism zone with the town of Bayview, because the Washburn Area Chamber is the tourism entity that represents our whole area. So we've come into an agreement with them to take those dollars and contract with a tourism entity to spend those on specifically tourism promotion and tourism development. By state statute, those are what those funds need to be used for. A tourism entity, by definition, is an organization, and there's more to it than I'm going to quote, but is a tourism organization that has 51% of their budget spent on tourism promotion and tourism development. So there are some issues with the fact that our tourism entity doesn't spend 51% of their budget on tourism promotion and tourism development.
I would like to.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially, let's just.
And, I have here the budget from the annual meeting that I attended the other night, and it shows, and I was on the board for the chamber for a few years, so I know that they didn't used to have any leisure marketing dollars set aside. There was an event promotion dollar spent. But their marketing budget as approved for 2022 was $7,000, which is 5% of their total expenditures. The room tax budgeted was $65,000, and the 2022 actual revenue, or 2021, was $97,000. And so, really, more money should be spent by the tourism entity on tourism promotion and tourism development. And I'm trying to work my way into figuring out how that can happen. And so I was, like I said, kind of glad that Dave put this on the agenda just as a discussion item anyway, because we need to hash this out. Now, the discussion item in particular says the concept to create a tourism committee. So I guess I should bring us there and work my way backwards instead of the way that I did it. But I kind of did it my way because I'm the one.
When you say a
And I'll
tourism entity that you're talking about, are you talking about our chamber?
Our chamber is our tourism entity that that the tourism commission contracts with.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna let Max jump in here.
Because there's other details.
So there's a lot of, in this statute has changed a lot of times over the past, probably 7 years. It keeps getting tweaked as far as defining what can and can't be used with room tax dollars, changing how these reports are sent to the Department of Revenue and are exchanged between the commission and the city. But just to clarify, one thing that Mary was saying, a tourism entity is defined as an entity that spends 51% or more on tourism promotion and tourism development. If there is a tourism entity in the room tax zone, which is Washburn and Bayview, then that tourism entity has to be contracted with to use these room tax dollars. If there isn't a tourism entity as that's defined, so let's just say the chamber doesn't spend 51% on tourism promotion and development, then the city, or not the city, the room tax commission can contract with another entity for the use of the room tax dollars. In that event, that entity has to spend 100% of the room tax dollars received on tourism promotion and tourism development. So even if their total budget otherwise wouldn't reach that amount of 51%, they have to spend all of that room tax dollars on the tourism promotion and tourism development.
So you could, the commission could still contract with the chamber, but it would be to spend all of the dollars on
Yes,
tourism.
even if it isn't defined as that tourism entity as defined by statute.
So Max, just to address the fact that the brick and mortar part and the employee part.
Can you talk into the microphone there?
Oh, sorry.
Because I've got Melissa on.
I know, right
I'd
up
love
there.
to hear what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So the other point that we went through when we all met 2 years ago now, the brick and mortar, the building and the employees are able to use some of that money. You suggested at the time that the chamber use more of that money and let's just say the discretionary account or the membership supplement and then put more money towards the advertising. So it's not that the chamber isn't doing its due diligence, but they get to use that tourism money to keep the doors open, that there's somebody there to represent and say, you know, the highs and the lows, and that's what we went through. And
Yes, and since then, and there was this discussion probably 2 years ago, I think about, since then, these statutes and the guidance on these matters have evolved further to have a more specific definition of what tourism promotion and tourism development is. That becomes more strict, specifically identifies 3 uses as to what that can be.
So can we know those 3 uses?
Yeah.
Those 3?
They are.
Because this is sounding like it's you know, it feels like and it sounds like, and I also know in my head where some of this is coming from and who's looking to get some of this money. So I just want to just put that out clearly. Nothing to do with you. I just, in my own way, feel that way.
Okay.
And have somewhat experienced it. So.
I don't know that anyone is looking to get
No,
any
no,
money,
just
but
So previously, tourism promotion and tourism development was defined as any activity that is reasonably likely to generate paid overnight stays by tourists at one or more establishments in that zone. It's now been further defined to say that definition means any of the following enumerated items that also meets that definition. And those enumerated items are marketing projects, creation and distribution of printed or electronic promotional tourist materials. That's one. Transient tourist informational services or tangible municipal development, including a convention center. The statute now defines those three specific things as what is allowed as tourism promotion and tourism development. I think as far as there isn't guidance, and I found a frequently asked question explanation from the League of Municipalities that I forwarded to Mary right before the meeting. And the League of Municipalities says the same thing. It's frustratingly vague what is and isn't allowed. The Wisconsin Hotel and Lodging Association. So they provide guidance on this, and I think their guidance was one of the items that was included in the last meeting that we had. That guidance was from 2010 and then 2012 as well. That guidance said you can use it on rent, you can use it on overhead. Their new guidance incorporates this new definition as well and says one of their goals is to push the legislature to define what is allowable for this money to be spent on.
Because
So they have removed that recommendation that you can spend it on rent and overhead from their recommended authorized use for room tax dollars.
So I'm thanking you for the clarification because it was sounding a little gray and ugly to me.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just want everyone here at this table and in the audience to understand that the chamber has never done anything wrong, except for me not coming yearly to a report. But that they too will have to change with these new requirements or the new description of money unspent.
And I just want to clarify that I don't have a goal with this particular item on the agenda other than to get it all out there so that we can talk about what is required so that we can follow the rules. That has always been the thing that
I got it. I just don't want it to come off as ugly and delinquent.
Karen.
I guess I'm still a little vague, or confused, Max. Was point two the development and printing of brochures? Help me with that language again.
Yeah, I'll quote it here. Marketing projects, including advertising media buys, creation and distribution of printed and electronic promotional tourist materials, or efforts to recruit conventions, sporting events, or motor coach groups.
But doesn't that, in fact, and I know it's it's just by association, but I mean, you gotta have a person develop.
Do that, yeah.
So
Yes,
some staff costs could
Be included.
be included, could they not?
I think, yes, that's reasonable.
Yes.
And doesn't that staff have to be somewhere? I mean.
Yes,
how
I would say, but
How is
what,
that?
and that's where the question is, and that's where there is no direct answer.
And there are a number of lawsuits out there right now because some municipalities have taken it upon themselves to create a tourism committee and, taken back all the room tax dollars and are spending them however they think is appropriate based on the law. And that is questionable, is it okay to do that? That is a question that is literally being litigated at this moment.
And wouldn't we want to work with the entity that we have
Yes.
rather than creating something new
I mean, in
that we
my
would have to work with? And who's gonna supervise that?
I think so.
Scott does not want another committee to supervise.
So just to be clear, I am not necessarily advocating for a tourism commission. It's simply for discussion, to see how we can untangle some of the misunderstandings and or from other business owners in the area, how the money is spent and what the business owners feel is necessary for their chamber to be conducting advertising just to give an example, and this is kind of a short and sweet, kind of in a nutshell, I can say that as a business owner and others that I've spoken to, the role of the chamber, because they are accepting room tax dollars, in our opinion, we want the chamber to get people on the sidewalk. And we will get them in our door. And I think right now, the roles are a little reversed. They're more focused on getting people in our door, right, and not on the sidewalk. So if that makes sense, right? I mean, if they get people here, then it's the business's responsibility to get them in the door, you know, however they want to do that, specials, sales, signs, whatever, you know, but getting people on our sidewalks, that's what we feel should be the role of that entity.
And the statutes require, regardless of whether a separate room tax commission just for the city is created, even if there is such a commission, they're required to contract with a tourism entity, with the chamber for certain services. The commission can take over some of the tourism promotion and tourism development, but the chamber is statutorily required to be involved with the room tax expenditures.
I think in some instances, it has gotten to the point where some cities have contracted with the chamber for like $1, so that they meet the letter of the law, but then they're controlling the money. That is not what I think is in our best interest. We don't have the desire or capacity to try to control the room tax dollars. I think it's in our best interest to work with the chamber to get to a place where we're all meeting our requirements. So
one question I have is, does the chamber obviously has a set of bylaws? Do they not?
Yes.
Okay, and so is there a mission statement?
Yes.
And so should the mission statement reflect the role of the chamber as more of a visitors bureau? You know, I mean, I haven't been able to find the mission statement.
So I think they just updated it, Melissa.
They did.
Chime in if you're there and have it in front of you. I think they just talked about it at the annual meeting, and I think tourism was a part of it. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, Dave, just for your information, Carl, the mayor, and myself were at the annual meeting. You were, I guess you didn't attend that.
I did not.
And if one had been there and to see the number of different brochures and magazines and publications that that Washburn is in, I guess I question how business say that the chamber isn't working to bring people to the sidewalks. Now, maybe it needs to be more people, but the spread in the voting magazine was unbelievable. I mean, it was like 4 pages. They even mentioned it, a small ABC thrift shop.
That was an article,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
Right, no, but is that not promotion? Is that not advertising?
It is not considered advertising, tourism, promotion, and development to.
An article in a voting magazine that's directed
If you,
to people who are,
pay someone to write the article.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, but it's, if a reporter comes from the voting magazine and does it, that's not promotion.
And I know that it's not as defined.
Okay.
And I actually, as the tourism department, partnered with Melissa to put an ad in that magazine to feature along with the article.
There was an ad.
So
Right.
there was an ad. I think the point being the dollar amounts that are being spent on advertising are small compared to the amount of room tax dollars that are going to the tourism entity.
But again, the changes that are taking place, that they acceptable less personnel and brick and mortar. And again, who's doing it? Your staff. Where are they going to be? In a building. Those were acceptable things. Now, no chamber anywhere can be accused in terms of having been illegal using room tax fees for that, because it was allowed, as it continues to be fine-tuned. And I take, of course, I've got a history, but I want it to be very clear that it wouldn't behoove them to do it wrong because they already have people at their backs, banging anyway. So, just make that.
Is it safe to say that there's more coming
As far as what?
as far as explaining what they really want? Because it's.
They who?
The state and.
Right.
I can't say whether there's any clarification coming. The room tax statute has been a mess since 1994 when it was created. There's been constant.
But there's people asking you or filing
Yeah.
for.
Yes.
It seems to me that we're not gonna resolve that here. I think maybe we ought to wait a little bit until the dust settles.
We could be waiting a long time.
Well,
And I think in the meanwhile, the point, even though, the question for discussion is the concept to create a tourism committee. I guess let's go back to that question again.
Right.
Is that even a possibility? And it sounds like, yes.
Yes, that is a possibility.
And then that committee would direct the tourism entity on how to spend those dollars? Or not?
No.
Okay.
So the city, right now, there is a commission. It's a joint commission with Bayview and Washburn. That commission has decided to send 100% of the room tax revenue to the chamber. They don't have to do that. That commission can decide how to spend that money. The room tax money has to be spent on tourism promotion and tourism development. If that commission decided there was a better way or a different way to spend that than sending it to the chamber, they could do that. If the city wanted to pull out of that joint commission with the town of Bayview, the city could create a City of Washburn room tax commission. And that City of Washburn room tax commission would have the authority to determine how best to spend these room tax dollars, whether that's by sending it all to the chamber or spending that money in other ways to promote tourism development and however the term is defined to promote that.
Right.
So yes, it's a possibility.
And, just to go back to the reason behind the whole room tax statute is to bring money back into the community to spend on marketing, to bring more people to the community, to get more room tax. It's a cycle to bring more people into the community. And so you have to spend the money to get the benefit. So it's just, it's a good question to ask. It's a good discussion to have. I'm hoping that nobody,
What's the
that's
question?
defensive. The question is, can the city create a tourism committee? And that was what started the discussion, but all these other things are very relevant to that discussion, as far as elements that need to be considered.
So my.
Hold on, sorry, Tom first and then Carl.
I have a question. I don't know if it's budget constraints or what, but you see Cornucopia and all those other little towns go together and they're advertising. If the Wolves are down in Minneapolis on TV, we are not doing that whatsoever. Asheville does it, Bayfield does it, and then when Bayfield does it, well, you got Red Clef and Cornucopia, Fort Wayne, all those little towns. Their businesses are putting money into advertising and it's bringing business.
Well, and Cornucopia doesn't have a chamber. They have a business association. And so it is more of the small businesses just pooling their money. They don't have a room tax even to have dollars to spend on that. So it is the businesses that are contributing to those sorts of ads. So it's a little bit different. But Carl?
On recollection of the budget they presented, there was a deficit, so they're spending more money than they're taking in. So how do we determine that they're not spending enough money on what they're supposed to be spending it on?
Because they had a graph.
Yeah, and there's a deficit there.
Well, sure, but
that's.
the deficit is because they want to add an employee, is my understanding. And that's why the salaries is more than the previous year budget. So the salary amount was 78,990, and now they're proposing for it to be 105,420. So that's where the increase is, plus some more marketing.
What is that employee doing?
Oh, I'm not sure. But I think if you're gonna count, employees as tourism promotion and development, then you need to keep track of how much time that employee is spending on tourism promotion and development versus business, membership issues and questions and those sorts of things. So that would, these are all good questions. It's good to look at this to make sure that we understand what's happening with all this money. It's a lot of money coming in, and we want it to go to what it's supposed to go to, which is tourism promotion and development. Is that happening? We need to have more conversation. But the question tonight is, can we create a tourism committee? And I believe Max has answered that question. And it's for a discussion. And so does anyone else have any thoughts that they want to put forward on the concept of a tourism committee or room tax dollars in general and tourism promotion while we're on the topic? Karen?
My only comment would be, if we believe that we need to have a clear picture of how the chamber is spending their money, rather than set up a different process, we need to have dialogue.
Yeah, and the next presentation will be happening soon, February, or I can't remember if we changed it to March, to be able to get that.
To get the final.
To get the last quarter.
Again, if we currently have a agreement with the town of Bayview and that's working well, we wouldn't want to disrupt that.
Well, we need to ask the question, is that working well?
Well,
as part of our
I don't know, I'm
discussion.
not on the commission, but I'm assuming it must, or someone would have said it isn't working well.
Well, that's why the questions are being asked.
Okay.
So that we can get to that decision of, is that commission working well?
I have not. Have you heard of specific issues that the town of Bayview has that it's not working?
I am just asking questions to know how it is working. And I don't want to assume because it's working well.
I just asked her, who's on the commission?
It would be myself and Beth Nichols for Washburn, and it would be Bill Bodine and Jake Pingle from Bayview.
Have they raised concerns?
No. I think part of what comes with that is realizing that these uses for the money seem to be very fluid. And we've kind of stuck with the 2 year ago meeting that we all had, which was personnel and brick and mortar and advertising. And felt like it's there. Just quickly, the chamber has an account. When the room tax is paid, it's put into an account in Bremer Bank to the commission. The commission rolls it into the chamber account at Bremer, which is nothing more than the tourism. There are other accounts the chamber has, but they don't get mixed up other than, there's the discretionary fund, there's the membership fund. Those monies supplement activities, but they also supplement staff. And as was suggested by Max 2 years ago, that those monies from those other accounts should be maybe spent towards the personnel and brick and mortar, and that money that had been officially okay to use be spent for more advertising, and that's what they move towards.
Is the mission statement available online? Can you see it?
I'm not sure.
I haven't been able to see it readily available on their website.
Yeah.
No, they stated it the other night, but I don't think I saw it in writing anywhere. So maybe we can get an email or something.
She's on.
Yeah, I know, I asked before if she had it handy, but she didn't chime in, I don't think so.
It's very hard to hear you, so please excuse me. The current vision for the chamber as of a few months ago is to drive business opportunity and foster community to create an economically thriving Washburn area. The mission as of a few months ago, which is not finalized yet, is the Washburn Area Chamber supports its members by sharing information and resources, providing educational opportunities, and promoting business and tourism.
So the and tourism part is part of the mission, okay.
95.5.
Well, understand too, is being called a chamber of commerce puts you in two different, I mean, it's in essence, there's the tourism part and then there's the membership and business part. So you can't get rid of one, well, you could get rid of a membership in your businesses, but really, how's that really come into play, so.
A lot of small northern communities act as both.
Yeah, statutes are, like most statutes, created looking at larger cities that have dual, not combined entities here.
And Bayfield has an additional one above Ashland and Washburn as well, so. Yeah.
Well, they at one point met the criteria to be an official visitor bureau. And now they maybe don't anymore, so they do spend 100% of their room tax dollars on advertising and marketing.
I just wanted to address one other question Dave had, kind of mentioned it. A question about whether the city or the room tax commission can tell the chamber or the tourism entity what to do. There is no direct connection there, but Mary did ask me to look into requirements of who's on the commission and who gets to appoint them and on the board. There's no required overlap between the chamber board of directors and the room tax commission. There's one requirement that a board member should be a member from the Wisconsin Hotel and Motel, represent Wisconsin lodging, like an owner or an operator of a lodging facility. And then for the room tax commission, the mayor appoints 2 members from Washburn in the current situation. And then the commission itself chooses 2 other members who are owners or operators of a lodging facility. And Bayview appoints 2 members.
Are those different based on the size of the
Yes.
city? Because I thought we were just one appointee and then the chair appointed another, or the appointee appoints another or something like
Yeah,
that.
they are different. And
Because I think I have just appointed one.
okay, so it's 1 and then the chair, so it's 1 from Bayview, 1 from Washburn, and then they appoint 2 more. Who have to be lodging owners or operators.
The room tax commission appoints 2 lodge owners.
To the commission.
So the person that the mayor appoints a lodging person to the commission. If that person isn't already a lodging person?
Not to the board of directors.
No, 2 separate things.
Yeah.
So the board of the chamber should have a lodging member for each of the municipalities on their board. I don't think so. I think there was someone and they're having trouble finding.
But that's the problem, there's always been difficulty, and I mean always been difficulty, because there's so few. A lot of Airbnb people or such don't want to step forward, don't want the involvement. But again, even just 2 years ago, there were more lodgings and everybody was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on that board. And, so small communities are limited by who really wants to step forward and do it. So from what I understood always that if they were just to be called out on it, would have to prove that you spoke to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. I said, no, I don't want to. And then it goes down from lodgings to just throwing out entertainment or, like there's
Some
a,
other tourism
yeah,
related kind of
exactly.
thing. And I know Melissa has said that recently when we met a couple weeks ago, that she has talked with current lodging members who do not want to step forward to be on the board.
Which is not unlikely. Historically.
Yeah.
You
So,
Okay,
clear as mud,
clear as mud, I suppose.
but
Should the mission statement though align itself with
the tourism entity
Yeah.
part.
I mean, I know it says and tourism, but it seems like that's just, something thrown in there to cover the bases, Like, I mean, this doesn't seem like things are prioritized.
Well, we'll see, take it one step at a time, keep getting information, and we'll get our presentation in March of, how the room tax dollars were spent this year.
Okay.
All right? Are you good with the discussion as it is ending?
Sure.
Okay, discussion and action on temporary street closure, Omaha Street between First and Second Avenues West, and property use for free outdoor play at Stage North on December 8th through 10th and 15th through 17th. Rebecca Wynell, petitioner.
Mayor, I move approval of closing Omaha Street on December 8th through 10, 15 through 17.
I'll second that.
The race.
Motion by Karen, second by Tom. Sorry, Laura.
I'm sorry.
I kind of thought I heard something, but
Do you need to add to that, the stipulation about the dry frozen ground, is that please recommend?
I didn't in my motion, but I can.
I've spoken with Rebecca about that, she understands. She'll make that.
so, so the current motion is sufficient for what we're looking for?
I believe so.
Do you feel like, does anyone feel it needs to be in motion?
No, well, I think they're good neighbors and, they don't want to do it again, next year.
It was
So,
fun last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I just see the recommendation from Tony is that true approval of these conditions.
And I think Jerry is not going to be calling if it's really soft. He's going to say, hey, it doesn't work. So,
And then Tony gets all upset.
I mean, I think Jerry,
I've had this discussion.
that's property that Jerry's going to be concerned about. He's not going to get ruts and not be concerned.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are adjourned.
You like him for
Jared hung in there the whole time.
Jerry, you
win.
Recording.